Apocalypse. I can steal superpowers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, Trap. To be honest, as a 4th Silver Evolver, Duhan had never seen such an outrageous second Black Iron Evolver. It was simply a monster in human skin. Don't underestimate the power of 4th Silver. Duhan ran through the ruins with a ferocious look. He smashed the door of a room and rushed in quickly. Gluo followed behind him and rushed in. This was the half of the old building that had not collapsed. Although the remaining area was less than half, there was still a possibility of hiding. Darn. Gluo smashed the wall with a punch, and with a wave of his hand knife, he cut open the obstacles blocking the way. Duhan ran in front and tried to disappear from Gluo's sight. Duhan himself knew that Gluo was like a ferocious wolf at this time. As long as he could attack you, he didn't care, even if he was injured. But if you really wanted to find an opportunity to kill him, you really couldn't do it. Duhan could only cause minor injuries to Gluo at most. If he wanted to cause serious damage, it would become a scene where both sides would suffer. At this moment, Duhan had already abandoned the idea of defeating Gluo head-on. Gluo in this state was really too abnormal. He was not afraid of fighting at all and ignored any protection. Even if he was killed, he might die with him in the end. Duhan had only two ideas at this moment. Either give up the mission and run away immediately, or find an opportunity to distance himself, hide, and then take advantage of Gluo's absence to sneak attack and kill him. But Gluo was now in a state of fighting to the death, and Duhan had no confidence that he could retreat unscathed. His only way was to kill Gluo. But Gluo also clearly knew Duhan's strengths, so he kept chasing him. No matter what was blocking him in front, he would smash it with one punch and rush straight towards Duhan. This weird stalemate between the two did not continue indefinitely, but soon ushered in a turning point. In the half-collapsed room, Duhan, who was running in front, suddenly stopped. He turned his head strangely and threw the blood-red dagger in his left hand at Gluo. The red daggers named butcher knife are a pair. At this time, Duhan threw the dagger in his left hand, aiming not at Gluo, but at the ceiling above his head. Swoosh! The dagger pierced straight into the chandelier in the room. Gluo ran forward like a hungry beast at this time, and it seemed that only Duhan was in his eyes. However, boom. At that moment, when the dagger thrown by Duhan hit the chandelier, the bottom of the chandelier suddenly exploded, and then the huge chandelier fell directly. And this was not the end. After the chandelier fell, the entire ceiling exploded, and dense explosions continued to sound. The concrete above the entire room was completely shattered in the explosion, and fell down with a rumble. The moment Duhan threw the dagger, he immediately turned around and ran away. In the explosion, the whole room shook. This was the 3rd floor of the building. The ground on the 4th floor above the room had been completely shattered, and it seemed that Gluo was buried underneath like a collapsed rock. Then, there was another roar. It's finally over. When the explosion ended, Heiku Duhan stood in front of the room buried by the broken concrete and couldn't help but smile. This was not a trap he made, but one of the traps made by Butterfly Fenijaya. He had seen Fenijaya trigger the trap, so he knew how to open it. During the battle in this room, he successfully stopped Fenijaya's plan, and this mature trap was left. Duhan himself didn't expect that he would actually need to use this trap, but since it has been used, it's no big deal. Although I don't want to admit it, if you continue to fight like this, you will be the winner in the end. The large amount of source power consumption made Duhan's face a little pale at this time. He held the only remaining dagger in his hand and walked back into the room. After the collapse, the 4th floor above the room had collapsed completely, and the messy furniture was pressed on the rubble, and the thick concrete floor was blown into many pieces, pressing down at the angle that had been planned long ago, completely burying Gluo underneath. Duhan looked at the huge pile of debris in front of him and turned the dagger in his hand, as if he was hesitating whether to go and find another one immediately. In terms of time, Du-han took a few steps forward and stepped on the rubble. He searched for a while and found no trace of the other dagger on it. It's too late, forget it. Du-han sighed and could only give up his weapon for the time being. If necessary, he could only come back. He looked at his naked upper body, but couldn't find the right clothes. I don't know how far Say and Fiji ran. The situation is really bad. Du-han untied the clothes tied around his waist. The clothes were stained with his blood and were almost soaked, but he still chose to put the clothes on. The scabs of blood looked really disgusting. Well, goodbye. I have seen the strongest second black iron evolver. Du-han put the dagger back into his waist, bowed his head, and said hello to Gluo, whose life or death was unknown, and smiled as he was about to walk out. It is true that we will see each other again. However, at this moment, a low and subtle voice suddenly sounded, and Du-han was stunned, but he quickly confirmed the source of the voice. Du-han lowered his head in disbelief and found that there was a sudden obvious vibration in a certain place that was pressed by the rubble, and almost at the same time as the sound was made, Du-han did not even have time to react, and the ground of this room suddenly made a huge shattering sound. The next second, in Du-han's horrified eyes, the ground of the whole room collapsed, and his body fell directly down with the ground. This was not just a fall in one place, but all the ground in the whole room was broken. At the point where Gluo was, the half-meter thick floor ground actually collapsed instantly, and the whole fell from the third floor to the second floor. Rumble. The fourth floor and the third floor all fell to the second floor. The broken concrete blocks were like a rainstorm, and the dust and smoke flew. Du-han, who had never expected such a thing to happen, could not even react immediately. Of course, it was impossible for him to react. The floor of the entire room collapsed downwards, and there was no place to grab onto it. He could only fall with it. Boom. 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 Although Du-han fell with the ground, he still reacted quickly and did not fall to the ground. He adjusted his posture and stood firm when he landed. But on the other side, Gluo's reaction was faster than Du-han had imagined. Although he already knew that Gluo would attack him, he had just landed on the ground and had just pulled out his dagger when Gluo rushed out from the rubble next to him, as fierce and violent as an angry wolf. Chapter 327, Malice. At this time, Gluo was covered in blood, but he showed no signs of weakness, and his aura was even more terrifying. Star purple source power flowed around Gluo, and his pupils had become vertical pupils, with star-like colors flashing in them. It's over. At this moment, the distance between the two was too close, and Du-han was already in a weak period after the explosion. The moment Gluo rushed out, Du-han knew in his heart that he could not escape. The fourth silver evolver's ability to control his body has almost reached the point of being able to do whatever he wants. At the moment before the contact, Du-han's right hand stabbed out the weapon in his hand first. The next second, the two collided, and Du-han aimed his dagger at Gluo's heart, but Gluo's left hand finally grabbed the blood-red dagger called Butcher Knife. Gluo almost used up his last strength and twisted it violently. The dagger cut Gluo's palm, but Gluo's huge strength still forced Du-han to let go of the weapon in his hand. Almost at the same time, Gluo's right arm had already grabbed Du-han's left shoulder and pushed him down. Bang! Du-han's back was solid and hit against the angular stone pile. He groaned and wanted to struggle, but at this time, his left shoulder suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain. Snap! At that moment, Gluo's right hand grabbed Du-han's left shoulder. He clenched his hand and twisted it suddenly. Du-han's entire left arm was like a chicken wing that was forcibly twisted off. With a snap, the bones broke, the flesh split, the joints were completely separated, and blood spurted out. Ah! Du-han's voice was not that kind of shrill cry, but a crazy voice. He stabbed Gluo's eyes with his left hand, as if he wanted to poke Gluo blind. But at this time, Gluo had already grabbed the dagger he had taken and swung it suddenly, cutting off two of Du-han's fingers. Gluo. Du-han gritted his teeth, as if he wanted to tear Gluo apart and eat him, but Gluo still had a cold face at this time, and punched Du-han in the face. It's over. The next moment, the fist wrapped in the source force suddenly retracted, and Gluo's elbow hit Du-han's chest with a bang. Cough. Duhan coughed violently after being hit hard in the chest. He opened his eyes very wide and stared at Gluo as if he wanted to eat him. In the dust, Duhan seemed to feel that his death was coming. He stared at Gluo without any intention of giving in, but he did not insult him. He just stared at Gluo angrily, as if he was unwilling to be killed by him like this. Gluo, do you think this is the end? Killing me is the end? The power of our black voice is far beyond your imagination. Doomsday is approaching. Heliku Duhan already knew that he could not survive at this time. He had a smile on his face and his eyes were wide open. He looked at Gluo as if he saw a future in which Gluo would die tragically like him. Really? I'm looking forward to it. Gluo pressed his palm down on Duhan's chest, and the sound of bone cracking sounded again. Duhan, whose internal organs were completely broken, struggled for a while, and gradually lost his voice. It's finally over. Gluo shook his injured left hand. Under the effect of crossing Yan's blood, the wounds on Gluo's body were quickly stopping bleeding, and the broken flesh and blood were healing again. It looked like a magical time travel. By the way, this pair of daggers is good. I can give it to Sona and Sia as a souvenir. Gluo bent down and searched in the ruins, and finally found the other of the pair of red daggers named Butcher's Knife. Although the dagger was very sharp, Gluo didn't like it very much. The bloody smell was too strong. Considering the way Heliku Duhan preserved them, this pair of daggers might not be simple. But it's all over. Gluo didn't expect that he could kill an evolver of 4th silver rank at the peak of 2nd black iron rank, although the process was very strenuous, and Duhan's original talent was a bit useless, just pure acceleration. But he won after all. What a pity, I still haven't broken through to the 3 blue steel rank. Gluo felt that this battle was not yet at that level, and he was a little too excited, but he didn't feel desperate after all. Let's leave it like this. Everything was over, and Gluo didn't intend to stay for long. He walked out, but just after leaving the old building, he stopped abruptly before he took a few steps. Who? Gluo looked at the diagonal side of the building with a sharp gaze and was suddenly shocked. Could it be that Herishen came again? Mr. Gluo, don't do it. It's me. After Gluo shouted, within a few seconds, the figure hiding behind the load-bearing wall also came out. When Gluo saw the face of the person who came, he was immediately stunned. Feijia? That's right. The person who came was Feiemo's son Feijia, or the thief who specializes in stealing male evolvers, Butterfly. At this time, Feijia had changed out of his women's clothes and turned into a boy who looked gentle and delicate. He was younger than Gluo and looked like a real fresh meat. Feijia, why are you here? After seeing Feijia, Gluo felt relieved. At this moment, his injuries had almost healed, so he was not afraid of him fighting with him. Mr. Gluo, that Heliku? Compared to Gluo's calmness, Feijia was much more cautious. He looked around, fearing that Duhan would suddenly appear. Duhan is dead. I killed him. Not seeking credit or being excited, Gluo reported Duhan's name calmly and told Feijia that he was dead. Dead. Great. So amazing. Feijia was really scared by Gluo. He stared at Gluo in surprise, with excitement flashing in his extremely feminine eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Gluo, I have already known your request from my father. Please rest assured, I will prepare $2 million for you tomorrow. Well, okay. Gluo looked at Feijia's eyes. That made him feel creepy, and nodded expressionlessly. Although Feijia gave him the feeling of being a little gay, he was still very sensible when it came to money. Feijia, whereas Seiyi? Miss Seiyi has gone back because of an emergency. She said she is a maid of Nagamura Feijiang and her safety can be guaranteed. We don't need to worry about her. Wait. Nagamura Feijiang? Gluo never expected that he would find his target in such a wonderful way. What's wrong? Gluo, do you know him? It's okay, I've heard of this name. In order to avoid being exposed, Gluo did not explain too much. Although Feijia was a little confused, he did not delve into it. Mr. Gluo, let's go to the hospital now. Your injuries should be bandaged. Chapter 328, Chaotic Border. No, I'll be fine in a while. Gielluo waved his hand to reject Feijia's proposal. His injuries only looked terrible now, but they were actually gradually healing. The reason why Feijia was worried about Gielluo's injuries was because the previous battle was too desperate. Those wounds were too terrible. If they were on ordinary people, they would die directly, but for Gielluo, it was just a matter of time. Feijia, the target of the Black Voices, say ye. Let's go and see her. Do you know her address? Yes, she just told me. Feijia certainly wanted to find Seiyi, but before Seiyi left, it was obvious that she wanted to go alone and didn't want him to follow her. Thinking of Seiyi's resistance, Feijia's expression on his face was a little hesitant. Gielluo certainly saw the meaning of it, but he still pretended to be stupid. Then let's go now. Gielluo was only thinking about what Chang and Fei wanted to do, and everything else was put aside by him. Feijia opened his mouth, but he didn't say what he wanted to say, and just led the way in front. After all, Gielluo had just arrived in Fanmeng, and didn't know much about everything around him. As a local tyrant, Feijia had been operating the surrounding territory for a long time. Feijia took Gielluo through his secret passage. He set up different traps in several places. Feijia didn't hide anything from Gielluo. As they walked, he explained the principles of the traps to Gielluo and told him how to avoid them. After walking for more than 10 minutes, the two walked into a dilapidated house. A heavily armored military off-road vehicle was parked inside. Feijia got on the driver's seat and Gielluo sat next to him. A few months ago, a wild beast riot broke out on the border of Fanmeng. Feijia started the car and slowly drove out of the dilapidated alley. Then he gradually accelerated, leaving the scenery and people on both sides behind. Wild beast. Right. Gielluo naturally knew what wild beast meant. Wild beasts, like humans, would also evolve due to the influence of source power, and it was not just an improvement in size and strength. While evolving, their IQ would also undergo a transformation. High-level wild beasts would even gain thinking abilities comparable to humans. Wild beasts attacking humans is not some incredible news. Normally, it should not be described as a riot, but an attack. Feijia, you mean, it was caused by humans? Well, you can say that. About 4 or 5 kilometers away from here, some organization has established a secret base for studying wild beasts. Feijia's driving skills are obviously good. He drove very steadily along the way, and even when he was talking, he did not seem to be slow at all. It's probably the so-called darkness under the lamp. Anyway, if it weren't for this accident, no one would have thought that there would be such a dangerous secret research institute so close. Since they are studying wild beasts, of course they can't just stop at simple dissection and analysis. They created all kinds of weird wild beasts, and we don't know whether they succeeded or failed. Anyway, they are a bunch of monsters. The reason why there are so many ruins in the village is because of the riot. It is unknown who caused all this, but when fighting against the wild beast riot that day, a middle-aged man named Chang Confixiang showed extremely terrifying strength. Feijia's story was a bit long-winded, but Gielluo understood it. The name Chang Confixiang was unknown before, but in the crisis against the wild beast that day, his strength shocked everyone. Therefore, this kind of deterrence, Seiyi said, that she was the maid of Fekan Changxiang, and there would be no danger. Besides, if you think normally, Seiyi, a little maid, really doesn't have much value. However, the Black Voice organization targeted Sei because of Nagami Fixiang. However, they were concerned about Nagami Fixiang's existence, so they did not do it themselves, but asked Feijia, a young man, to carry out the plan. Here we have to complain. Feijia is really looking for death. Is he looking for death and excitement? Or is he so fascinated by the price of Black Voice that he forgot the danger? Feijia, what is the relationship between that secret research institute and Nagami Fixiang? Gielluo does not believe that someone like Nagami Fixiang who likes to do human experiments would have the idea of sympathizing with others. He took action when the wild beasts rioted that day, and it must be that he had a part in the cause of the riot, and it was the kind that could not be exposed. There are rumors that Nagami Fixiang is the head of that research institute, and that the wild beast riot was caused by him. If this kind of news spreads, no one will bother Nagami Fuxiang. GLUO listened to Feni Jaya's description, combined with the previous information, and basically had the outline of Nagami Fuxiang in his mind. Chankan Fuxiang's unremitting motivation is to pursue immortality. In order to achieve this goal, he has no humanity at all, and is completely selfish. In the beginning, there were indeed people who challenged Chankan Fuxiang, but they were all defeated without exception, and each of them had one hand chopped off by him, which could not be reattached. Feni Jaya had already driven the car onto the highway at this time. The reason he told GLUO all this must be to make GLUO be careful with his words and not be impulsive when he met Chankan Fuxiang later. So arrogant? What rank is Chankan Fuxiang? So unscrupulous, isn't he afraid of public outrage? 4th silver rank. Maybe, he really is not afraid. Feni Jaya sighed when he said this. Fan Meng was troubled by internal and external troubles, and the government was about to collapse. An evolver from an island country ran to the border to act arrogantly, and no one cared. It was not clear before, but now, Chankan Fuxiang has a good relationship with several underground forces on the border. I don't know anything else, but it is said that he has paid a lot of US dollars. Money opens the way, that's understandable. Although GLUO didn't show it on his face, he was sure that Chankan Fuxiang had definitely established a relationship with Tang Zujian. A person wanted by an island country came to Fan Meng. Not only can he build a secret research base with a lot of money, but he can also use money to smooth relations at will. This is a business with no income. Chankan Fuxiang can be so unscrupulous, and he must have an unclear source of money. Feni Jaya, how is the Secret Research Institute now? Have you been there? I have been there before. Now it has been completely emptied. There is nothing left. The people here are poor. Feni Jaya didn't mention anyone in particular, but GLUO heard that after the Wild Beast riot, the secret base was abandoned, and no one even cared about the border residents of Fan Meng moving things in. Obviously, there must be nothing useful inside. Fijia, Chankan Fei is so difficult to deal with. Why did you kidnap his maid and get involved in such a matter? Because the price he Sheng offered was too high. Chapter 329, Meeting. GLUO couldn't help but be stunned for a moment when he heard Feni Jaya's straightforward answer, but this reason was indeed impeccable and there was nothing wrong with it. It's not that I want to, but he gave too much and couldn't refuse. From Feni Jaya's hesitant expression, GLUO felt that the price of this deal might not only be money, but something more important. Something that Feni Jaya needed very much. GLUO was not a curious person. Since Feni Jaya didn't want to say it, GLUO didn't force him to ask. Affected by this topic, the conversation between the two became less and less, and GLUO didn't have much to ask Feni Jaya. Except for Chankan Fuxiang, GLUO didn't care about others. Fan Meng was like this. No one cared about what happened to this place. It was nothing more than doing their own calculations. Feni Jaya obviously had something on his mind, but he still completed his task meticulously. After about 20 minutes of driving in the off-road vehicle, the two walked into the rich area. What GLUO didn't expect was that the two of them were questioned because they were strangers. Judging from the appearance of the policeman, it seemed that the two of them were missing some documents. Because of the language barrier, GLUO didn't know what the other party was saying, but Feni Jaya stuffed some money into his hand, and the two were let go directly. This is really a sign of national destruction. GLUO didn't know how Fan Meng felt at this point today, but it was obvious that the whole country was rotten to the core. No wonder so many hunted evolvers would flee here. The whole Fan Meng has lost its normal order. As long as you have money, everything can be solved. The destruction of a country is not terrible. What is terrible is whether it should be destroyed or not. Feni Jaya didn't have a good impression of this country because he was not from Fan Meng, but his father ran here after committing a crime, and it was also the place where he grew up. It is precisely because he has seen heaven before, so when he comes to hell again, he will feel deeply disappointed and desperate. In this era, it is difficult for a country to be destroyed. GLUO recently made up for the history of Fan Meng and had no good impression of this country, so his tone was not good. Feni Jaya nodded beside him and said nothing. This area where the rich live is completely different from the villages and towns on the border. The roads are much cleaner and smoother. Feni Jaya changed the direction of the car and stopped in front of a garden villa. GLUO, this is it. Oh, this is really where the rich live. GLUO looked at the 5-story villa in front of him and got out of the car with Feni Jaya. The small garden in front of the villa was well maintained and the lawn had been trimmed, but the low gate was not closed. GLUO pushed the door and walked in with Feni Jaya. Unknowingly, GLUO was the one walking in front. Ding dong. GLUO stood in front of the villa and rang the doorbell. After a dozen seconds, hurried footsteps sounded inside the door, followed by the sound of the electronic lock opening. Mr. GLUO? Sai had never expected that GLUO would come to her in such a hurry. She turned her head and looked at Feni Jaya. Feni Jaya shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she did not persuade GLUO. Is it convenient for me to go in? GLUO seemed not to see Sai's hesitation and uneasiness. He stretched out his hand to hold the side of the door. It seemed that if Sai wanted to close the door, he would immediately stop her. Mr. GLUO, my master doesn't like to be disturbed, so. Sai was not a heartless person. GLUO had just saved her life. She couldn't say anything unpleasant directly. She could only try to persuade GLUO to leave. Sai, I came here not to find you. I came to find Chang'an Fixiang. GLUO's expression was still smiling, as if he was just an acquaintance visiting. However, at this time, Sai in the room was already trying her best to close the door, but the door was firmly blocked by GLUO, without any sign of closing. A visitor from afar is a guest. I have spent a lot of effort to come here. If you don't inform me, how do you know whether Chang'an wants to come? GLUO slowly opened the door with great strength. Although Sai tried to stop GLUO, it was ultimately a futile attempt. GLUO opened the door abruptly. On the other side, Feni Jaya was very tactful. She did not intervene in these things from beginning to end. She just listened quietly beside her. Sai sighed, as if she was very desperate about GLUO's stubbornness, but the situation was beyond her control. After opening the door, GLUO walked directly into the villa. Where is Chang'an Fixiang? Take me to see her. GLUO had already sensed the abnormality in Sai's attitude. He did not say it out loud or pursue it. He just observed the room very calmly. Everything in the room was arranged in an orderly manner. The table and floor were very clean. It was obvious that Sai was doing his job very seriously. However, it was very strange that the room was quiet, without any sound, and the silence was terrifying. Mr. GLUO, don't. Sai stretched out her hand to hold GLUO, but Feni Jaya beside her stopped her immediately and pulled her back. GLUO's expression at this moment was frightening. Feni Jaya felt that he might kill someone at any time and didn't dare to breathe. Mr. Nagamura Feni Ziyang, are you there? Cough cough cough. Is there anything wrong? Unexpectedly, GLUO shouting was answered by a voice. GLUO looked up at the figure walking down from the second floor and couldn't help frowning. Cough cough cough. Sorry, I don't feel well. The person walking down from the second floor was a very thin middle-aged man. His face was very pale and he kept coughing while walking. He looked like he was really seriously ill. Welcome, distinguished guest. Say, go make a pot of good tea. Understood. Sai leaned slightly towards Chang'an Fixiang, then shook off Fijia's hand and prepared to make tea, but she was stopped by GLUO before she took 2 steps. No need to be so troublesome. GLUO stopped Sai from moving forward and he walked into the house very rudely. Chang'an Fixiang stood at the edge of the living room and his face sank when he saw GLUO approaching. But before Chang'an Fixiang could react, GLUO had disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of him like a whistling wind. 5 fingers opened and pressed on Chang'an Fixiang's apostrophe face. Interesting. Interesting. I almost got fooled. GLUO looked at the prey he had captured with a playful expression, and Chang'an Fixiang, who had been expressionless just now, suddenly became terrified when GLUO's right hand touched his body. What are you trying to do? Chang'an Fixiang, it's really interesting you actually have the ability to let a desolate soul pretend to be you. GLUO's smile was very bright. He increased the strength of his right hand little by little, and the head of Chang Confuciang that he was holding began to crack like glass that could not withstand the pressure. Chapter 330, Frustrated. Woo. Say Paran, tell me, where is your master? Gluo is not a fool. Just before entering the door, he was still thinking about the intrigue with Chang Confuciang. But when he really walked into the house, the heavenly blade in his right hand reminded him that there was a wild soul in the house. Relying on this kind of sensitivity that can be called a predator, Gluo instantly pierced through Chang Confuciang's cover-up and discovered his method of hiding the truth. It must be said that it was really amazing. Chang Confuciang actually had the ability to turn a wild soul into his appearance and imitate him. It was really amazing. If Gluo did not have the ability to sense, he might really be deceived. After all, from the appearance, there was really no flaw. Gluo estimated that, although Chang Confuciang had this ability, the price must be not small, and the rank of the wild soul could not be too high. Gluo thought of this information when he met him, and he also reminded himself to avoid being tricked by Chang Confuciang in the future. Say, Chang Confuciang, where did you go? Sei did not answer Gluo's first question, and he was not annoyed, but just repeated the question. Sei stood at the door, pursed her lips, and shook her head. I don't know. The master left me here, just to attract the attention of Hisheng, just a trick. Gluo's eyes did not move away from Sei. The girl looked at Gluo without hesitation, and there seemed to be no intention of deceiving him. Of course, from the moment he found out that Chang Confuciang was fake, Gluo guessed this possibility. A ruthless person like Chang Confuciang who could escape the pursuit of a country, his intelligence gathering ability could not be too bad. Chang Confuciang might have noticed that Hisheng was going to attack him, so he pretended to be a traitor and threw Sei and his substitute here, perfectly attracting Hisheng's attention. In this way, Chang Confuciang should not have expected Gluo's intervention, nor did he expect Fijia to release Sei. So in his plan, the things that Hisheng wanted must have been moved away long ago and replaced with a deadly trap. Sei, Chang Confuciang has given up on you. She used you as bait and didn't consider your life at all. Do you understand? Gluo believed that Chang Confuciang had never told Sei where he went or what he planned to do. However, Gluo would never believe that Sei had no clue. After all, she was Chang Confuciang's only maid, and she could always know something from the clues in life. Sei, Gluo is right. Chang Confuciang just wants you to die. He is not worth it. Fijia was frightened by Gluo's murderous aura. He walked to Sei and tried to persuade him earnestly. Fijia saw that Gluo had something important to do now. If Sei didn't give him a satisfactory answer, he might really kill someone. Sei's expression remained unchanged at this time, and her breath was dead, as if she really didn't care about her own death. Facing Fijia's anxious eyes, Sei closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then opened her eyes again. I guess that Chang Confuciang has left Fan Meng and went to a neighboring country. Sei didn't say it very confidently. She just said it was a guess, but there must be countless reasons for her to make such a guess. A month ago, I accidentally heard that Chang Confuciang wanted to take some important goods and quietly cross the border. For this, the other side will send someone to meet him, a very important person. When did Chang Confuciang leave? 3 days ago. How many people did he take? Just himself. Does he have no other important people in Fan Meng? No, not one. Sei answered very decisively, without too much emotion in her voice, and didn't sound like a lie. Gluo frowned, thinking about the loopholes in Sei's answer. He asked questions while thinking, and asked more than a dozen questions. Sei answered them quickly, and the answers were not beyond Gluo's expectations. Now, the situation is very obvious. Gluo is late. Before, even 3 days ago, Mu Yingluo might have been here at the border of Fan Meng, but the transfer plan was also decided a long time ago. Gluo can't say that he has no clues now, but he must have come up empty-handed. Chang Confuciang has left, and Mu Yingluo was taken away with him. It is estimated that there will be no clues here. It's really infuriating. GLUO shook his head helplessly, feeling a little frustrated. He ran here so anxiously, but he still did nothing. Chang Kun-Fei-Xiang is undoubtedly selfish, cold-blooded, and smart. Leaving Sei here means that he has completely abandoned her. Sei's capture must have been within his expectations. He couldn't let the maid know too much. Sei was actually just obedient, and she was not that valuable. That's it. GLUO didn't want to embarrass Sei. Chang Kun-Fei-Xiang had already left Fan Meng, so there was no need for him to stay in Fan Meng. Instead, he had to return home as soon as possible. Fortunately, I just came here and found out the truth, so I didn't waste time. The uncomfortable thing is, it's still a mess. GLUO didn't think of searching the villa and walked forward directly. When he passed by Fijia, GLUO gave him a wink and then went out. Fijia was just frightened by GLUO's expression. He stood a little behind him, as if he was going to protect Sei behind him at any time. But fortunately, GLUO didn't do it in the end, which made Fijia breathe a sigh of relief. However, GLUO's last look before leaving made Fijia a little confused until GLUO left and only he and Sei were left in the room. Fijia suddenly thought of something. GLUO wanted him to persuade Sei to go with them. She couldn't stay in this place. Otherwise, she would die. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331. People are like grass. Alas, I'm still soft-hearted. GLUO sat in Feijia's car, feeling a little headache about the current situation. Chang Kun-Fei-Xiang's whereabouts are unknown now, and Mu Yingluo must have been taken to China by him. She should have been connected with Tang's Eugene's people now. With the strength of Zinke bio-pharmaceuticals in China, Chang Kun-Fei-Xiang is impossible to be found, and the information about Mu Yingluo's whereabouts has been cleared again. As for Sei Yi, GLUO didn't know how much she knew, but it was meaningless to continue asking. After all, GLUO saved her life and didn't want to make any embarrassing scenes. Then, let's do this. As for whether Feijiao can persuade Sei Yi to leave with him, GLUO didn't know. Anyway, Feijiao knew that if Sei Yi stayed here, she would definitely die. Although GLUO discovered Chang Kun-Fei-Xiang's conspiracy, He Sheng hadn't discovered it yet. An important member of that gang died, and it was impossible for them to have no support. Facing a transnational evolutionary organization like He Sheng, GLUO Fan Sheng was extremely wary. Fan Meng couldn't stay there anyway, and he had to return home immediately. Speaking of returning home, the trouble is that, in order to prevent leaks, GLUO's contact with the other party is a fixed time every night. Even if he arranges to return home immediately, it will be early tomorrow morning. In the original plan, GLUO might need 10 days or half a month to find useful information. No one expected that everything would happen so suddenly. He just sneaked here and had to sneak back again. I can't make a phone call. It's annoying. If possible, GLUO now really wants to contact Kichudi to ask for her news and opinions. However, before coming, Kichudi told him not to contact anyone in China, and she was no exception. After all, GLUO should be at home now. Whatever happens outside is none of his business, and it can't be related to him. GLUO originally thought that, as long as he was concealed and careful enough, it would be fine. But Kichudi told him that in the 19th Bureau of the National Security Bureau, there was a person with Yuan Chu's talent for tracing ability. As long as he showed a flaw, he would be caught. This news scared GLUO. If he was found out, all the things he did would be troublesome, so he became timid. Before leaving, we still have to deal with the two children. GLUO is now a little worried about the arrangements for Sona and Sia. The two little girls are helpless. If he doesn't care, they can only beg on the street. Fan Meng is a place where people are eaten. However, it is not very convenient to take them back. It is impossible for GLUO to be sitting at home and suddenly two children pop out. In the future, as long as someone is interested, they can basically find out that Sona and Sia are from Fan Meng. There must be something fishy about their appearance in the country. Trouble. Gluo scratched his hair and turned around to see Feijia's Heng and Sei coming out. Sei's expression was a little depressed at this time. She just followed behind Feijia without saying a word. Gluo, where are we going? Feijia first opened the door for Sei, and after confirming that she was seated, he sat in the driver's seat. Let's go to the hospital near your home. Gluo is not interested in tracing now. Chang Kunfei wants to do something in Fanmeng. He just wants to deal with everything quickly and rush back to the country tomorrow morning. Gluo, are you injured? Feijia may feel that he owes Gluo for Sei's matter, or he may want to ease the atmosphere in the car. Anyway, his attitude towards Gluo is still very good. No, there is something. Gluo waved his hand as if he didn't want to talk more. He just told the address of the hospital. Feijia nodded and started the car. After what happened just now, the atmosphere between Gluo, Feijia and Sei was a little subtle. Feijia concentrated on driving the car. Sei lowered her head, and it was unknown what she was thinking. Gluo also looked out the window, without saying a word. For a while, only the sound of breathing was left in the car. After a long while, Gluo felt that he couldn't go on like this, so he spoke first. Sei, what are you going to do next? I don't know. Sei lowered her head and spoke very softly. She seemed to feel that she owed Gluo a little. When she raised her head, her eyes were full of tears. 3 or 4 years ago, my mother was seriously ill, and Mr. Chang Kunfei was the only one who offered a helping hand. He let my mother live a very happy year, and I'm very grateful to him. It doesn't matter what my life is like, I don't hate him, but Sei wiped her tears with her sleeves. Her breath choked for a while, and she coughed several times, looking extremely fragile. It's just that Mr. Chang Kunfei did a lot of excessive things. I heard that he secretly collected a lot of homeless orphans. They are all dead. Gluo could hear the entanglement in Sei's tone. Listening to her words, one-sidedly speaking, Chang Kunfei might be good to her. Not only did he save her mother, but he also gave her a place to stay. From Sei's perspective, Chang Kunfei is her great benefactor. She should be grateful and keep his secrets for him. There is nothing to resent about dying because of him. However, Chang Kunfei is indeed doing things that are unscrupulous and inhumane. The Fanmeng government was incompetent and corrupt, and the political situation was rotten. Many people lost their families in the turmoil, and countless orphans were exiled. Chang Kunfei seized this opportunity and conducted human experiments on these orphans who were ignored by everyone, treating human lives as consumables. All those children died. Gluo, I really have no choice. I don't care what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. Sei's voice sounded very sad. Feijia was driving the car, and her eyes were red. After listening to her words, Gluo sighed and didn't know what to say. It's over. It's all over. Although Gluo did not show too much anger, in his heart, Chang Kunfei had been nailed to the pillar of death. If before, Gluo only heard Chang Kunfei simply do human experiments, but after seeing the miserable situation of Fanmeng and seeing Sona and Sia, Gluo has truly felt the human life. They are all living people, not animals, but people. How dare he? How could he? Feijia couldn't hold it in any longer at this time. He took a few deep breaths and his voice changed. Gluo, Sei and I have agreed that I will find a place to hide for a while. When this is over, I will open an orphanage with her to give these displaced children a stable life. It can be regarded as atonement for our sins. But this is a good thing. Gluo didn't expect Feijia to have such a plan. It is certain that Feijia just used this reason to persuade Sei to come out. Atonement, merit, salvation, whatever the reason is, but there is no doubt that this is a good thing. Chapter 332, Real Name. After walking through the workshop, the topic of the three people turned to the orphanage. Gluo didn't say much at this time, but Feijia talked more, in order to show off. Sei listened to Feijia's analysis and plan, and she was no longer tired. After walking for about 20 minutes, the car stopped at the door of the hospital. After Gluo got off the car, he bought some fruits and food, and then led Feijia and the others into the hospital. I don't know if GLUO's previous impression was too scary, but Sia, who just had a fever, was transferred to a separate intensive care unit. GLUO asked around before finally finding the room. In the current situation in Fanmeng, the hospitals that can operate well are basically private, and the most luxurious wards are arranged on the top floor. GLUO entered the room and found that the entire ward was fully equipped, better than a hotel room, and it was obvious that it was a product of a high price. In the room, a girl named Sia was lying on the mattress, sleeping soundly. She had a needle in her hand, and the dripping sound of the bottle was very hypnotic. Sona moved her chair and sat beside the bed. She held her sister's hand, her face full of worry and fatigue. She was only a 12-year-old child, but she gave people a very mature feeling. Mr. GLUO? Hearing the sound of the door opening, Sona hurriedly stood up from the chair. She had changed her previous clothes and was now wearing a plain white dress, which looked a little thin. Keep your voice down, don't wake her up. GLUO waved his hand to signal Sona not to greet him. He walked to the other side of the ward and sat at the low table. Sona followed him. Sona, let me introduce you. This is Fijia and this is Saie. GLUO had just been in the car with her. He listened to Fijia's thoughts along the way. He had some ideas about the arrangements for Sona and the two girls, so he specially introduced the two. Brother Fijia, sister Saie, hello. Sona's answer was very decent. From her actions and expressions, it seems that she was not from a commoner family, but at least a wealthy family. Otherwise, she would not be so generous and natural. GLUO originally thought that Sona was just a simple beggar, but watching Sona and Fijia talking, he became more and more confused. In the alley, the dirty Sona didn't make people see any clues, but now that she changed her clothes and washed up, she was like a different person. Sona, how is Sia? Is her condition serious? The doctor said that the situation is not bad. The high fever has subsided a little, and she will get better slowly. When Sona talked to GLUO, there were tears in her eyes. Her sister's condition was stable, which made her finally relax, and not as tense as before. That's good. GLUO nodded, and put down his previous worries. Then, as if he remembered something, GLUO took out a bunch of food he had just bought from the plastic bag he brought and put it on the table. Sona, you haven't eaten yet, eat something quickly. Thank you. Sona looked a little embarrassed under the gaze of GLUO and the other two. The girl must be hungry now, but she was not as eager to eat as ordinary people. Without picking and choosing, or even confirming what GLUO had bought, Sona took the food closest to her, took out the cake from the bag, and ate it very ladylike. To be honest, at this point, not to mention GLUO, even Fenijaya could see that something was wrong. Sona's upbringing was too good. She was obviously very hungry, but she still maintained etiquette when eating. When drinking water, Sona always took very small bites and ate the cake very carefully. After eating a whole piece, there was not a single crumb on the table. Fenijaya gave GLUO a look at this time, as if asking GLUO where he found such a child. This child doesn't look like a beggar living on the street. From the appearance, Sona is obviously not a native of Fanmeng. From her accent, she doesn't sound like a Chinese, but she communicates very smoothly with GLUO and others, which shows that she has mastered more than one language. Sona is not a greedy person. She can even be said to be abiding by some rules. After eating 2 pieces of cake, the girl is finally not so hungry, so she stops eating. Sona, you haven't eaten enough yet. Finish eating quickly, I bought them all for you. No hurry. Sona smiled and shook her head, revealing 2 shallow dimples. The educational rules she expressed were definitely not something that ordinary people could teach. She was hungry, but she could curb her appetite. She knew that eating and drinking in front of others was very powerful. After eating a little, she stopped immediately and started talking to her savior. GLUO looked at Sona's reserved smile and suddenly stopped looking. He looked at her cheek with a thoughtful expression. Sona didn't know what happened yet. She even thought there was something dirty on her face. The girl wiped her face twice and blinked in confusion. Mr. GLUO, what's wrong? Just call me GLUO, no need to be so trivial. GLUO waved his hand to refuse Sona's address. He knocked on the table, as if he had confirmed something, and his tone was very affirmative. "Sona, are you from the island country?" "Ah." Sona didn't seem to expect that GLUO would ask her this question, or she didn't expect that GLUO would see through her identity so easily. "Yes." Sona hesitated for a moment, but still nodded, and the language at this time also changed to the island country language. "So, Sona is a pseudonym?" GLUO didn't care what Sona's real name was, but he was very curious. How could Suon, an island country, appear here in Fanmeng? How could she, a child of a family with strict family rules, end up in Fanmeng and become a beggar? "Yes. My real name is Zeduo Yunsky, and my sister is Izu Yunsky." "Mr. GLUO. GLUO, I'm sorry, I deceived you." "Sona, no, it should be Izu Yunsky." She bowed her head very sincerely, looking serious as if she was going to die to apologize. "No, so. Izu Yunsky, I'm very curious, why do you say a pseudonym?" GLUO felt that he had discovered something very important. He adjusted his sitting posture and looked at Sona very seriously, obviously not wanting to listen to lies anymore. "Because someone is hunting us." The little girl, who was only 12 years old, seemed to be trying her best to hold back her words, trying to say everything in a suitable way, but the situation was obviously very complicated, and she looked very hesitant. GLUO didn't react to this. He just waited quietly, neither urging nor comforting, just waiting for Izumo ZHI to think about the cause and effect she was going to say. "My sister and I were captured and brought to Fanmeng. Chapter 333, The Truth. "We can't go back, and we don't have a home anymore." Izumo Ori was clearly explaining why she used a pseudonym, but as she spoke, she seemed to break down and started crying. Perhaps because she was worried about the 3 people from GLUO, the little girl cried very quietly, just covering her cheeks, tears flowing from her fingers. "Izumo Ori, do you know Nagami Urafixiang?" GLUO seemed to have opened a door, and his thoughts suddenly became clear. When Izumo Ori heard his tentative question, she suddenly raised her head. "You know Nagami Urafixiang?" Izumo Ori seemed to have thought of a nightmare, and her whole body trembled uncontrollably. She opened her lips, but couldn't say anything, a bit like a drowning fish. "Izumo Ori, I'm not your enemy. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Don't be anxious. Slow down your breathing. Don't be anxious." Seeing Izumo Ori's stress response, GLUO knew that he had vaguely guessed what was going on, so he didn't rush, but instructed Izumo Ori to calm down and slow down her breathing. After a long time, Izumo Ori's breathing finally returned to normal. She sat on the chair with sweat all over her forehead, her cheeks pale and distressing. "My family was killed by Nagami Urafixiang. He killed everyone, leaving only me and my sister." "Why did he do that?" GLUO had read Nagami Urafixiang's information, so he knew him well. Nagami Urafixiang was a well-known figure in the island country back then. He should not be short of money, and there was no need for him to kill for this. "Because my sister and I are what he called rare experimental materials." Izumo Ori spoke very slowly at this time, just like the history of that year, so heavy that she couldn't speed up her speech. "At first, I didn't know why he thought that my sister and I were the experimental consumables he needed most. Later, I found out that he actually tested students from many schools under the banner of student physical examinations, and finally, locked on us. The first time, he came to my parents in person and offered a high price, wanting us to conduct the so-called clinical drug trial. For this, he also took out a large sum of money." Izumo Ori had calmed down at this time. The girl held a half bottle of water in her hand and took a sip occasionally while talking. GLUO sorted out the general plot in his mind and nodded silently. This thing seemed like something that Chang'an wanted to do. Before he was wanted, he had always relied on money to open the way. If that didn't work, he would offer a higher price or rob. It was obvious that the Izumo sisters had this value. Later, my parents rejected his request. He tried to raise the price again, but was kicked out by my father. After that, he disappeared for a few months. When he reappeared, he had a lot of helpers around him. These people didn't completely listen to him and seemed to be just helping. But it was these people who killed all my relatives, kidnapped my sister and me, as well as a lot of children around our age, and took us here, to this country that was about to fall apart. Izumoori's narration at this time no longer had much pain, as if all the pain was just the appetizer, and the nightmare that followed was the most terrifying. Nagamura Fuxiang, what experiment are you doing? GLUO actually didn't want to ask such a question. This would undoubtedly tear open the scars on Izumoori's body and awaken her most fearful and painful memories. However, GLUO had to know about Nagamura Fuxiang. He wants to live forever. Izumoori gritted her teeth and shook her head. She and her sister, as well as countless other people of the same age, were dragged into hell because of Nagamura Hisage's stupid and delusional idea. I remember he said that source power is a kind of power that can create miracles. As long as the source power reaches a certain level, it can greatly prolong life. This is already a ladder to immortality. Wait, Izumoori, I want to ask, the reason why Nagamura Hisage chose you, is it because you have awakened the original talent? Or were you already evolvers at that time? GLUO was a little curious about what Nagamura Hisage's selection criteria were. This standard or premise must be very harsh, otherwise Nagamura Hisage would not have stared at Izumoori so hard at that time. I don't know the reason why I was chosen. I didn't have the original talent at that time, and it can even be said that there was no possibility of having source power. But I was chosen. Chosen from ordinary people. GLUO rubbed his face in annoyance and was a little curious about the trajectory of Chankan Fuxiang's plan. First of all, it is certain that Chankan Fuxiang must attach great importance to Izumoori, otherwise he would not have to kill people personally and take Izumoori and other children with him during the escape. This is really too abnormal. Izumoori, like the other dead children, must have something special that was discovered by Chankan Fuxiang and was considered to be an experimental material that could greatly improve him. What did he do? GLUO actually wanted to ask what kind of experiments Chankan Fuxiang did on these children. However, looking at Izumoori's painful expression, GLUO could only change his angle and try to make the doubt sound a little lighter. However, to GLUO's surprise, Izumoori gradually stabilized her mentality after the fear just now, which was a bit unusual. The place where we are imprisoned is just a few kilometers away from here. They have built a huge secret research base, which conducts various studies on wild beasts and evolvers. How did you escape? GLUO didn't disbelieve what Izumoori said, but he was also very curious about what happened that allowed Izumoori, who was a precious material, to escape. A few months ago, the base was attacked by strangers, and all the wild beasts were released. At that time, the whole base was in chaos. I don't know who opened the gate. Anyway, we were inexplicably released, and no one stopped us. Taking advantage of the chaos, I successfully escaped with my sister. Because we were afraid of being caught by Chankan Fuxiang, we could only hiding like mice, and dared not do anything. Through Izumoori's narration, GLUO finally knew the whole picture of the whole thing. The reason why Chankan Fuxiang showed his prowess in the wild beast riot at that time was probably to show his strength and then use this power to deal with the big and small forces on the border of Fanmeng. The purpose was to make these people pay attention at all times and help him find the lost test subjects. Thinking about it this way, is it possible that someone rescued you on purpose that night? Chapter 334, Attacker. No, it shouldn't be. There was some hesitation on Izumoori's small face, as if she was not sure about her judgment, but after hesitating for a few seconds, she nodded and confirmed her judgment. After I escaped from the laboratory, I have been hiding everywhere. Once, I was almost caught by that person's men. From that person's mouth, I heard a person's name. Who? GLUO felt that he was approaching the truth he longed for. All the causes and effects were woven into a thread by fate, and finally converged at a certain endpoint. Mu Yingluo, they mentioned that this person is very important. It is so important that one day, that person gave up all the test subjects just to save her. GLUO took a deep breath, put his hands on his knees, and couldn't calm down in his heart. Sure enough, Mu Yingluo's importance to Chankan Fuxiang and Tang's Yujian far exceeded any other research results. It doesn't matter how many people died, but Mu Yingluo and others will never give up. Izumo ZHI, have you ever seen Mu Yingluo? No, my sister and I have been detained separately. The scene was so chaotic that day. If we didn't have a special sense, we would never have found each other. After Izumo ZHI told GLUO his biggest secret, he didn't care about these scattered secrets, and told them all directly. Thank you for your hard work. GLUO felt mixed emotions after listening to Izumo ZHI's story. Sukinghan died thousands of times for Mu Ying. Since he wanted to help Sukinghan save people, the best way was undoubtedly to find Tang Zujian. As long as Tang Zujian was caught, he could be killed, held hostage, or even interrogated. As long as Tang Zujian was caught, everything could be solved. However, Kichudi had specially reminded GLUO that Tang Zujian's identity was not ordinary. He had the connections left by Li Xiaoan after his death, and with his deliberate management, this person really couldn't die. Otherwise, the impact would be too great. Moreover, there were countless evolvers protecting Tang Zujian, and even if they really met, they might not be able to hold him in their hands. Damn. Just when GLUO was about to speak to comfort Izumo Ori, there was a sudden sound of footsteps in the corridor. It was the sound of high heels stepping on the ground. In the empty corridor, it was unusually clear. What's wrong? Feijia was thinking about the current situation. He looked at GLUO, who was suddenly alert, with some curiosity, not knowing what happened. Feijia, are there other patients on the 5th floor of this hospital besides us? GLUO had just fought with He Sheng's people, and now he still had scars from the battle. It was because he killed Heiku Duhan that he was more sensitive to possible dangers. So, GLUO quickly stood up, grabbed Izumo Ori, and took her to Izumo Ori's bed, ready to take her away at any time. It seems, really not. Although Feijia's reaction was a little slow, he was very decisive. He directly blocked Sei behind him, and looked at the half-glass door. Damn. At this time, the person who came without hiding her footsteps just walked to the door. She stood outside the door, and the upper half of the glass of the door clearly showed her face. She was a woman with obvious Fan Meng descent. Her eyes were cold. After seeing Izumo ZHI behind GLUO, the corner of her mouth grinned, like a wolf, that finally found its prey. Then, the woman stretched out her left hand, and placed it in front of her. She clenched her right fist and hit the back of her left hand in front of her. Exclamation mark. At that moment, a long sound suddenly sounded, and then an invisible shockwave suddenly exploded. The door of the ward flew out, and was torn into pieces like confetti in midair. The glass and metal of the entire 5th floor of the hospital shattered. Although GLUO discovered the enemy, he did not expect the opponent's attack method at all. GLUO stood in front of Izumo ZHI, and directly met the wave like shockwave. Just like being knocked over by a wave in a flood, GLUO fell back instantly. His brain was emptied by the concussion, and his eyes were black. Dada. The sound of high heels rang out again, and the woman walked into the room swept by the shockwave, and hammered her left palm with her right hand again. The room, which was already in tatters, seemed to have been hit by a typhoon, and everything flew up. Feijia sensed the fatal crisis, and without bothering to remind GLUO, he decisively hugged Sei, and jumped down from the 5th floor. On the other side, GLUO used up his last strength to protect Izumo ZHI and Izumo Yun in his arms. Although he mobilized all the source power to protect his body surface, the shockwave of the woman was too terrible. Even if most of the force was blocked, the remaining impact force still threw GLUO out of the window. This was the first time GLUO fought against such a powerful long-range attack. Without physical contact, GLUO's original talent was the same as having nothing. Although he had reacted quickly enough, who would have thought that the ability of the person coming was so terrifying? I was careless. GLUO felt that he was overwhelmed by the recent smooth sailing, and he did not even consider the situation that the other party could not touch him. He jumped down from the sky with the Izumo sisters in his arms, and injected the source power into his right arm without any effort, successfully using gravity to slow down the speed of falling. And Feijia, who jumped down from the building before, was more outrageous. He did not have any means to slow down his descent. He relied on the external source power and smashed the ground with a bang, directly smashing a deep hole in the ground. However, the evolver of the 3 blue steel level was really outrageous. Relying on the protection of the source power, Fenijai's feet stepped on the ground hard, and nothing happened. Fenijai, take Sei and run quickly. GLUO also landed on the ground at this time. Because of the effect of gravity, his landing was as simple as jumping down the stairs. Okay, let's gather. Fenijai held Sei in his arms, and turned around, and went into the alley next to him without paying attention to GLUO. Sei is an ordinary person after all. If it weren't for Fijia's protection, she might have died at the first encounter. However, even though Fijia used her source power to protect her, the second shockwave still knocked her unconscious. The woman's ability was too overbearing. It was simply an AoE with extremely high damage, and the closer the distance, the more terrifying it was. Ordinary people were basically dead within her attack range, and had to run. Because Fijia fell directly, her speed was much faster than GLUO's gravity slow descent. When Fijia's figure disappeared, GLUO had just crossed the street. However, the attacker also jumped from the roof. She fell rapidly in midair, and launched another attack! And this attack covered most of the street. GLUO couldn't avoid it at all, and was hit directly in the face. Chapter 335, Two-Headed Wolf. Because the sound waves were falling from the top of his head, GLUO, who was holding the 2 girls, felt as if his head was hit by someone. He shook suddenly, and fell to the ground with a bang. GLUO had experienced a big battle before, and his source power and physical strength were greatly consumed. Although the wounds all over his body had been revived, his body needed to be repaired. Unfortunately, this attack was too sudden and fierce. GLUO's remaining source power could not resist the attack of a 4th silver evolver. Mr. GLUO. Izumo ZHI was just pressed under GLUO at this time. She barely turned GLUO over, and climbed up from the ground, and Izumo Yun, who was sleeping, also woke up in a daze. Sister? K, cheer up, the woman who always gives you acupuncture is here. The look on Izumo ZHI's face was particularly firm. There seemed to be light in her eyes. She looked at her sister without any confusion. K, we would rather die than be caught. Sister, I'll obey you. Compared to Izumo Ori, Izumo Yun was obviously much weaker. She raised her head, and looked at the figure in the air falling into the street not far away, and nodded heavily. Sister, we have no choice. K, we have no choice. Izumo Ori smiled, held her sister's left hand with her right hand, and the 2 sisters stood up from the ground with their fingers together. Run. GLUO felt like he had experienced an earthquake. He shook his head, and felt like he had a concussion. You two, don't go over there. GLUO gritted his teeth, and climbed up from the ground. At this time, Izumo Ori and Izumo Yun had already walked to the middle of the road. The street swept by the shockwave seemed to be ravaged. All glass products were broken, steel was twisted and deformed, dozens of cars were paralyzed on the spot, and the people inside were unconscious, and their lives were unknown. At this moment, 2 12-year-old girls stood in the middle of the road, their palms joined together, and cyan mist and purple mist rose from them at the same time. How is it possible? GLUO was sure that he had come into contact with Izumo ZHI and Izumo Yun, but he had not taken any talents from them at all. There is no doubt that every evolver first awakens the original talent, then goes through the metamorphosis stage, and finally awakens the source power to become a true evolver. The original talent is the manifestation of the beginning of evolution, and the source power is the sign that evolution is on the right track. It is impossible for a person to have source power, but no original talent. GLUO's returned 8 can seize any original talent. He doesn't believe that the original talents of the Izumo sisters can be immune to his seizure. Unless, seeing is not believing. At that moment, the sky-high source power was lingering around Izumo Ori and Izumo Yun. Their fingers were joined together, like the intersection of 2 forces, causing huge changes that ordinary people could hardly imagine. You must be kidding. GLUO stood on the other side of the street, and could hardly imagine the scene in front of him. Because it was too unreasonable and too unimaginable, GLUO couldn't help but open his mouth. At the intersection of the storm source power and the thunder source power, the figures of the two 12-year-old girls gradually disappeared and were replaced by a huge creature simulated by the source power, a huge two-headed wolf 20 meters long. The wolf had two heads, one pair of dark blue eyes, and the other pair of dark blue pupils. It was covered with silver white fur and had an elegant and beautiful body. Woo. Ayo. The two-headed wolf howled to the sky, and the blue wind and the azure lightning began to intertwine on it. It stomped its feet on the ground, and the ground began to collapse downwards like a collapse. The attacker who had just landed on the ground no longer held back at this time. She used all her strength to drive the source power, and the power of her innate power was like a wandering thunder. However, this time the damage to the entire block was far less than before, because the two-handed wolf lowered one head and opened its mouth. The manic wind gathered into a sphere in its mouth, constantly tearing and sweeping the sound waves, greatly reducing its lethality. The next second, when the sound waves completely dissipated, the huge 20-meter-long two-headed wolf pounced forward, and half of the block was shaking. It's just, Gluo felt the fierce wind cutting his face, and knew that he shouldn't stay any longer, so he didn't hesitate, and turned around, and started running away. As Gluo left, the two-headed wolf seemed to have finally lost its scruples. The fierce wind and thunder could explode at any time. From a distance, it sounded like a war was taking place. While running, Gluo kept looking back. A 20-meter-long two-headed wolf and a fourth silver-level evolver were fighting to the death in the city, which was a harm to the entire city. The building seemed to be bombed, with debris falling continuously, glass shattering, vehicles being shaken up continuously, and the bridge collapsed directly from the middle, because it could not withstand the shock. This is a wild beast. Gluo didn't know whether he was lucky or unlucky. Anyway, he had awakened his original talent for 10 years, and he had never seen wild beasts and wild souls. When he ran around the city, the wild soul was directly a 6th gold level, and this two-headed wolf was obviously a blue steel level wild beast. According to Kichuda's description, the standard body length is 20 meters, and the means of using source power are relatively simple, but the body is strong and the ability to resist attacks is far superior to that of humans. Therefore, a blue steel level wild beast can match a silver level evolver. This is the disadvantage of human nature and the crisis that humans need to be most vigilant about. What made Gluo feel most incredible was that Izumo Zhi and Izumo Yun, right in front of him, just a few seconds, changed from two little loli to a huge two-headed wolf, which was simply outrageous. Gluo guessed that the main reason why he couldn't take the original talent from them, or even feel the original talent, was that their original talents were incomplete. Normal people should have one original talent each, but the twin sisters Izumo were a little special. When they were born, something must have happened to their souls and bodies. This change caused them to awaken the original talent in half each. There is some kind of inseparable connection between the two of them. Not only can they feel each other, but they can even achieve the effect of direct positioning. And the activation of the original talent must be that the two of them stand together, with their palms fitting together, and then turn into a non-human. So, my return date should only be able to take away the entire original talent. There is absolutely no way to deal with this situation of half for each person. Gluo fled to a low building far away, looking at the wall-like scene in the distance, and felt his nemesis for the first time. Izumo Zhi and Izumo Yun, I'm determined to get these two, and Jesus can't stop me, I said. Chapter 336, I'll watch. Shock, shattering, wailing, the battle between a 20-meter-long two-headed wolf and a fourth silver-level evolver whose main attack method is to kill people in a large area, can be said to be a disaster. The two-headed wolf is huge in size, and has an advantage in strength, but because of its huge size, it lacks flexibility. The attacker happened to have an advantage in speed. At the beginning, she fought with the two-headed wolf several times, and immediately changed her offensive after being injured. She began to move frequently in the building, and her attack increased instead of decreasing due to the echo ability of the building. The wild beasts transformed by the Izumo sisters were obviously not used to the wolf's attack method. However, they have both thunder and wind attributes. In the source power attack, wind and thunder are mixed, and the power is enhanced. Every fluctuation of the source power is extremely terrifying. One person and one wolf fought to the death in the street, and the aftermath alone caused the death of hundreds of people. A large-scale escape was happening. The police had obviously driven close, but they only dared to stay far away, to do some evacuation and rescue. Of course, there were also some people who were not afraid of death. They filmed this inhuman battle with their mobile phones. The existence of the evolvers had been covered up by all countries, but it was gradually becoming impossible to cover it up. Wow, they are really good at fighting. GLUO originally thought that the battle would be decided quickly, but who knew that after 2 hours, the two sides demolished the entire block like a demolition, but the two of them were not seriously injured. It must be said that the evolvers are very different from the superpowers in novels. Although the superpowers in fantasy have all kinds of abilities, they are usually just ordinary people. They are only limited in strength and can be killed with one shot. But the evolvers are outrageous. The evolvers in the transformation stage are comparable to the ancient warriors. After awakening the source of power, their bodies are directly 4 times stronger than ordinary people. After that, it will increase exponentially. For example, this 4th silver level evolver should have just entered the 4th silver level. Her fighting style still retains the habits of the 3 blue steel level. Judging from her performance, this person's average attribute should be around 250 strings. Although the number is a bit unlucky, it represents a physical strength that is 50 times that of an ordinary person. A building made of concrete is like tofu dregs in her hands, which will break into pieces with a single squeeze. She fell straight to the ground from a height of 30 or 40 meters. She didn't even shake, but just went head on. If she really used her strength, she would step on a deep hole on the asphalt road, and the car would be squeezed like a plastic toy. And this is just the basic attribute of the body, not counting the source power she used, nor her original talent. 4th silver level evolvers began to break away from the concept of human beings, and have the ability to completely collapse an area. This battle is undoubtedly the best proof of this evaluation. The two-headed wolves transformed by the Izumo sisters can tie with her, which is obviously not easy. Blue Steel Peak, dual elemental attribute Wild Beast, the battle between the two sides has always maintained a delicate balance, almost to the extent of being evenly matched. As time passed, the battlefield became more and more severely damaged. The man and the wolf had an unexpected tacit understanding and left the block and began to move away. Is this sympathizing with the civilians? As a witness of this battle, GLUO could be said to have seen it from beginning to end. Now that the two sides have moved the battlefield, GLUO naturally hurried to catch up. However, it didn't take long for GLUO to notice something was wrong. This person is luring the enemy in. Although GLUO was in a bad state and could not intervene in the battle between the two, his eyesight was still there. This attacker was best at long-range AoE attacks, but her advantageous terrain was obviously in the city. Why did she run to the wilderness outside the city? Could it be Chang Kunfei wanted to set up an ambush? GLUO followed the two and chased them with great difficulty. The battle between the two sides in the city was completely flying all over the sky and running around. GLUO couldn't catch up, even if he wanted to take a taxi, so he could only run on his feet. No, it's impossible. Chang Kunfei has definitely left. GLUO is now analyzing the situation. He doesn't believe that Chang Kunfei is still in Fanmeng. He should have secretly taken Mu Yingluo to the country, and the remaining person may be his subordinate, or his collaborator. For example, this attacker, she is obviously from Fanmeng, and GLUO also noticed that the two sides have been fighting for so long, and no Fanmeng evolvers have come. This is obviously contrary to common sense. So, the one who wants to catch the Chuan sisters may be someone from Fanmeng? GLUO felt that something was wrong, and had decided to remind the Chuan sisters, but now, one of the two parties is running, and the other is chasing, and he seems to be unable to catch up. GLUO jumped out of a low building, landed on the air conditioner outside the unit below, and then ran all the way up to the roof of the tall building. You ignore me so much. GLUO looked left and right, and finally he could only grit his teeth, broke off a section of the guardrail, held it in his hand and weighed it, which could barely be considered a short spear. My long-range attack ability is too blind. GLUO did not intend to get involved in this battle. He just wanted to remind the Izumo sisters to come back. GLUO held the steel pipe in his hand and threw it towards the two-headed wolf with all his strength. Then, GLUO turned over and jumped down from the downstairs, like a fish jumping out of the water. It must be said that GLUO's predictive ability is really good. The steel pipe in his hand has completely become a throwing short spear. The huge two-headed wolf has just landed on the side of a building, and the steel pipe like a sharp arrow flew towards its eyes. Ding. The wild beast of the 3 blue steel level has the ability to release source power like the evolver. The steel pipe with the sound of wind hit the source power around the two-headed wolf with a crisp sound and was instantly shattered by the rapid source power. Half of it flew out in a spin. However, GLUO's plan was also successful. This steel pipe successfully attracted the attention of the two-headed wolf. Then, the giant wolf turned around, and what it saw was GLUO falling from the sky. The two-headed wolf transformed by the Izumo sisters was surprised for a moment in a very human way, and then it twisted its body and instantly gave up chasing the enemy. Instead, it jumped onto a building a little further away and used the recoil force to catch GLUO in midair. Fuck, so exciting. It's really bad for the heart. GLUO did not use gravity, but jumped down directly, which seemed to be a test for the Izumo sisters. But fortunately, the two-headed wolf saw him and successfully caught him. Izumo Ori, this woman is wrong. Stop chasing her and run in another direction immediately. Chapter 337, Slipping Away Quickly. The other party obviously doesn't follow the moral code of martial arts. There's a trap ahead. Let's run. GLUO has been frugal all his life and has never even ridden a horse, but at this moment, he was lying on the back of the giant wolf and felt so good. This was a giant wolf transformed by 2 beautiful girls. Although it was a little over 20 meters big, GLUO was lying on it like a toad lying on a swan, but the fur of the two-headed wolf was unexpectedly soft and warm, and it felt great to touch. Woo. AWW. The two-headed wolf transformed by the Izumo sisters protected GLUO with source power, and then they growled twice, as if they were communicating with each other. The next second, the two-headed giant wolf turned around suddenly, no longer caring about the woman who seduced them, and started running in a certain direction. Soft husband. GLUO was also an old pervert. He lay on the back of the giant wolf. He was obviously protected by the source power, so he didn't need to use any strength at all, but GLUO not only lay there, but also pawed hard. Not only that, GLUO also stuffed his cheeks into the white hair, making a pig-like sound. Of course, GLUO is not a pervert. He is hiding his face in case some camera equipment captures his face and confirms his identity. However, it is not a big problem. In the case of Fanmeng, the border villages and towns don't even have traffic lights, let alone cameras. They are so poor that they have nothing to wear. Where can they get such infrastructure? The white giant wolf ran all the way, and its speed crushed all family cars. GLUO lay in the soft wolf hair and could smell a very fresh fragrance. He quietly turned his head and saw the scenery on both sides passing by quickly, just like the scenery on the high-speed rail. Under the protection of the source power, GLUO could not feel a trace of wind, and it was so comfortable that he wanted to sleep. The Izumo sisters were obviously frightened by GLUO's words. They just chased the woman for revenge. Now thinking that they might be caught, they immediately changed their minds and started running wildly. After running for a full hour, the two-headed giant wolf finally stopped. What's wrong? Have we arrived? GLUO rubbed his eyes, raised his head from the white wolf's hair, and found himself in a mountain forest. Where is this? GLUO felt the source power protecting him dissipate, so he jumped off the giant wolf's back. He tiptoed around and looked around, but didn't find anything iconic. GLUO was about to ask the Izumo sisters, but he didn't expect that at this time. The 20-meter-long white giant wolf suddenly began to collapse. The cyan and purple mist continued to dissipate, and this form constructed by source power mimicry was rapidly dissipating, so fast that GLUO didn't even react. In just a few breaths, the huge two-headed wolf had disappeared, and the naked Izumo sisters lay on the ground holding hands, falling into a deep sleep. Is it time? GLUO looked at the two girls without clothes, scratched his hair in embarrassment, and finally had to take off his coat and put it on Yunski, and then took off his autumn clothes and put them on Yunke. Well, although it is spring now and not so cold, GLUO standing shirtless in the forest is a bit abnormal. It's troublesome. GLUO thought about walking around and checking the terrain to see if he could determine the location. But before he took a few steps, he turned back. There was no way. GLUO looked at the wilderness, and it was obviously not like there were people. There must be a lot of wild beasts. If he left, the two girls would be eaten by wild beasts. That would be a sin. GLUO did not forget that. Although the two-headed giant wolf fused by the Izumo sisters was very powerful, they were weak. GLUO held the Izumo sisters in each hand and began to walk to an open place. The two sisters were now in a coma, with their cheeks on GLUO's shoulders, as quiet as two kittens. What place is this? Is it Fanmeng? Or the country? GLUO looked around and found that he was in a low hill. Looking around, there was only empty grassland, and there was nothing that could represent the geographical location. It's a pity that I don't have enough knowledge. GLUO knew that some big guys could stick a stick in the ground and look at the shadow to determine the approximate longitude and latitude and determine their own location, but it was obvious that GLUO couldn't do it. GLUO was shirtless and was blown by the wind in the wilderness. He couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. It was because GLUO was in good health. If ordinary people did this, they would probably get sick after a while. The sun is on this side. GLUO adjusted his posture, took out his mobile phone with difficulty, looked at the time, and then looked at the sun to confirm the direction. GLUO remembered that Fanmeng was in the north, which meant that he was going south now, either close to the border or directly to the domestic city. This side is due south. After GLUO confirmed the direction, he strode forward to see if he could meet anyone. To be honest, although GLUO looked complacent now, he was actually quite panicked in his heart. Although the grassland is more comfortable than the desert, when you look forward and there is no end between heaven and earth, it is a great blow to people's mentality. Although GLUO is now a Black Iron level 2nd evolver and has Crossing Yan's bloodline to protect him, he is still a human being after all, and he needs to eat and drink. The grassland is empty, with no water source or human habitation in sight. Who wouldn't be panicked? If I don't eat for 2 or 3 days, it should be fine. GLUO felt his body and found that it was in very good condition. Ordinary people may lose their strength after being hungry for 1 or 2 days, but evolvers can still maintain their peak body without eating for 2 or 3 days. Evolvers are much better than ordinary people in terms of water shortage. Ordinary people will be very dangerous if they don't drink water for about 3 days, but evolvers have the effective source power in their bodies, so it's okay if they don't drink water for 2 or 3 days. Therefore, GLUO roughly estimated that, as long as he found water and food within 3 days, there would be no problem. I've been walking for 3 consecutive days. It's impossible that I won't encounter a water source, right? No way. No way. GLUO is in a good mood now, but it's too boring to walk alone, so he can only chat with himself. I don't know when they will wake up. GLUO hugged the two girls tightly, hoping that they would wake up soon. No matter if they could help, at least they should not be held like this. It was quite inconvenient. I was thousands of miles away from the mountains, listening to the wind singing the sounds of nature. The years have changed, but my heart is still at ease. GLUO hummed a song and walked forward in the midday sun. The infinitely extending grassland was like a huge picture, and GLUO was just a small dot on it, moving at an imperceptible speed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338, Overnight. Hiking is a very challenging thing. GLUO was not a very patient person. He kept walking forward, but could not see any changes in the surrounding scenery. He felt very irritated. When will it end? Gluo turned his head to look at the orange-red sky and sighed about the current situation. After walking for an entire afternoon, Gluo felt like he was walking on a wall. Nothing he saw had changed. If he had not seen a crooked tree occasionally, Gluo would have thought he was standing still. Now, it was almost dusk and the temperature had gradually cooled down. Gluo was bare-chested. It was not cold, but it was indeed not very comfortable. Moreover, the humidity was very heavy at night on the grassland. If he lay on the grass without clothes, his whole body would definitely be uncomfortable. These were all problems that needed to be solved. I have to make a fire. Although Gluo was not good at surviving in the wild, he at least had some common sense. Sleeping outdoors and hypothermia were very dangerous. Even if he was not worried about this, Izumo Ori and Izumo Yun were ordinary people and had to be carefully taken care of. Alas, I'm still carrying 2 children. Gluo carefully adjusted his posture and touched Yunkei's forehead with his hand. She had a high fever before and was barely treated in the hospital for a while. Now her condition is much better, but she still has a little fever. No, we can't go. It's time to prepare for the night. We must give them some water tomorrow. Because the grassland has shallow soil, there are few trees. Gluo walked for an afternoon and had walked out of the mountainous area. There were not many trees in sight, and those that were very sparse and far apart. Gluo gave up going forward and turned to find a place with more trees and decided to prepare for the night. I don't even have a stone here. Can I only use my hands to pull the tree? Gluo carefully put down the 2 girls and searched around for a long time. He couldn't find any stones to use. In the end, he had no choice but to rely on his hands. Fortunately, Gluo's right hand was very useful. He held his hand knife upright and chopped horizontally, directly cutting off the waist of a crooked sloth. Then, Gluo carefully chopped off the branches of the tree and used the method of drilling wood to make fire, to light a small pile of flames. Compared to those who survive in the wild, Gluo obviously has no experience and no equipment, but Gluo's physical strength is invincible. As long as his palm activates the source power, it is stronger than any tool. After a busy work, Gluo cut down 5 trees, cut them horizontally one by one, and turned them into long strips of wood, which were laid on the ground. Alas, it would be great if I could reach the blue steel level. Gluo is really envious of the evolvers of the blue steel level now. Their source power can be released, and the characteristic of the source power is that it can be shaped at will. If Gluo breaks through the black iron level now, then his preparation for camping can be swayed with immortal spirit. Just think about it. Gluo only needs to make a sword with his finger and let the source power shape along his fingertips, and he can get a sharp and handsome finger sword. That guy only needs to wave his hand to chop trees and firewood, which is so cool. With resentment in his heart, Gluo worked until dark before he almost settled everything. He used a pile of branches as firewood. He was not satisfied with just 1 fire, so he directly lit 3 fires, just like some kind of ritual. This wooden board is so damp. Are these 2 children okay? Gluo tried to lie on the wooden board, but he was shirtless and felt very damp. The Izumo sisters were now only wearing his coat. Although they slept soundly, they were not necessarily comfortable. Gluo hesitated for a while sitting on the wooden board, and finally lit the bonfire in front of him, and then began to roast the sliced wooden board. Because the branches were fresh, they were very moist. When the branches and leaves burned, smoke and dust floated. Gluo huddled by the bonfire, and put the wooden boards there, to dry under the smoke. After roasting them one by one, Gluo fell to the ground again, and put the 2 girls on them. Izumo was sick, so Gluo put her on the side close to the bonfire, to make her feel better. I should not be in Fanmeng now. Gluo tossed for a long time, and was no longer sleepy. He sat by the bonfire, looking at the fire, and thinking about the previous things. During the day, Gluo didn't pay attention to it, so he didn't think deeply about it. Now Gluo analyzed it, and basically confirmed that the direction he gave to the Yun sisters was the south, and the 2 of them ran to the country. At that time, they were dozens of kilometers away from the Fanmeng border. With the high-speed speed of the two-headed wolf, it was estimated that they crossed the border and entered the country in more than 10 minutes. After that, they might have deliberately run to a mountainous place to hide themselves, so they ended up in such a place. This place is vast and sparsely populated. How long will it take me to enter the city? By walking on my feet. GLUO looked at the smoke from the burning bonfire, hoping that someone would see the smoke and run to save them. GLUO was depressed for a while, added firewood to the bonfire, and then touched Yun K's forehead, and found that the girl was still a little hot. Tomorrow, we must find water. GLUO didn't worry about himself from beginning to end, but now he had to give up his previous plan. He didn't know where there were people now. Instead of looking for them, it would be better to ensure the safety of the two girls first. Wu purely leaping down, the sound of wolf howling could be vaguely heard in the wilderness of the grassland. GLUO was not afraid of wild animals at all, so he naturally would not care about the wolf howling, which was nothing more than a little noisy howl, 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 howl your hammer. GLUO supported his cheeks and had no idea about tomorrow's plan. He was shirtless and blowing the cold wind, which was already miserable, but the wolf howling one after another made GLUO not sleep at all. Wait for me, don't let me meet you. If I meet you, I will definitely not be as good as you. GLUO gritted his teeth and cursed, but he suddenly stopped while cursing. Wait. That's not right. Wolf. 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 GLUO clapped his hands vigorously, as if he had thought of something important. There are wolves. And it's a wolf pack. Since there is a wolf pack here, it must be their hunting territory, which means there must be wild animals around. If there are wild animals, there must be water sources. Wetlands or even small lakes would be fine, which could solve the current dilemma. If I think about it this way, as long as I find the wolves and follow them, I will definitely find a water source. GLUO rubbed his hands excitedly, feeling that he had seen the light. As long as he found the wolves, he could solve all the problems. Of course, these grassland overlords would probably attack him, but would GLUO be afraid of the wolves? He was still looking forward to the arrival of these wolf cubs, so that he would at least have meat to eat. Chapter 339. Sat. The first night on the grassland, GLUO didn't sleep at all. He needed to add firewood to the bonfire, and the sisters Izumo also needed his care. He also had to guard against the wild beasts on the grassland. That night, GLUO acted as a nanny. Fortunately, GLUO was strong and a night of sleep had no effect on him. When the sky was dawning, GLUO stood up from the ground, rubbed his cheeks, and was still in good spirits. I want to eat. I want to eat. 2 breads with cheese. GLUO stretched his body, did not add firewood, but waited until the bonfire went out, and then covered the embers with soil. GLUO was still very thoughtful in preventing grassland fires. He checked the conditions of Izumo ZHI and Izumo Yun in turn. After confirming that they were fine, he picked them up like yesterday. To be honest, it was really tiring and strenuous to hold one in each hand, but now there was nothing, so he could only hold them like this. Fortunately, the Izumo sisters were very honest when they slept, and did not do anything like killing people in dreams, so GLUO could move forward safely. In the early morning, the grassland was filled with humidity. GLUO chose a direction, and began his journey, to find the wolf pack. Last night, GLUO stopped howling for half the night and basically determined the location of the wolf pack. Now, GLUO must get there, as soon as possible. Wolves are not human beings. They usually wander around to hunt. Even if GLUO cannot meet them, he must at least track down their tracks, and follow them all the way. No matter whether it is reliable or not, GLUO has no other choice now. He only has this idea, and he has to do it, even if it doesn't work. I hope the wolves have just hunted successfully, are full and have enough to rest quietly. GLUO started his boring journey again. He couldn't run fast with 2 people in his arms, so he could only find ways to distract himself and make himself less tormented. A long time ago, GLUO once yearned for the life of riding horses on the grassland. He felt that riding horses and herding sheep was cool at the time. He could eat meat at any time, didn't have to go to school every day, and had a lot of freedom. But now, looking at the endless grassland, GLUO felt that he was so stupid back then. How could this grassland be a good place? It was so boring. Of course, small animals could be seen, but GLUO couldn't eat those little mice, so he ignored them running around. Hungry was okay, GLUO could stand it, but thirst was very annoying. GLUO walked in the morning dew. His pants were wet on both sides, but his mouth was a little dry. Alas, I'm so weak, I don't have the strength. GLUO really wanted to directly upgrade to the 6th gold level. According to Kichudi, the 6th gold level is the limit known to humans now, and it can be said to be the pinnacle of the mortal world. The 6th gold level evolvers are the most famous in the world now, with a total of 8. There must be hidden ones, but there are definitely not many. Because the 6th gold level evolvers can already be said to be the existence of demigods in human consciousness. The 6th gold level evolvers don't even need to eat or drink. They have broken away from the concept and shackles of carbon-based organisms and become another kind of unknown existence. As the saying goes, flesh and blood are weak, and machines can ascend. Humans have their limits after all. If you want to break the limit, you must not be a human. I want to fly to the sky shoulder to shoulder with the sun. The world is waiting for me to change. GLUO hummed an inexplicable song and walked with a pace that did not recognize his relatives. There was no way. He was too bored, so bored that he could only entertain himself. For 5 hours, GLUO did not stop for a minute and kept walking forward. When the sun was high, GLUO licked his lips and decided to find a shade to rest for a while. He is fine now. Even if the sun is shining, the source power can preserve moisture. The strong body that is not invaded by cold and heat can still maintain the best state, even if it has not eaten, drunk or slept for a day and a night. However, the Izumo sisters are not good. After escaping from the laboratory, they have been sleeping in the wind and rain, and their lives are very miserable. This also caused their bodies to be very poor and unable to withstand the tossing. In the early years, the Izumo sisters were rich ladies. Where did they suffer any hardship? Now they have fallen to such a miserable state, which is really pitiful. Their families are broken, and they can't protect themselves. Is this their fault? In this world, the law of the jungle is indeed the truth of nature, but if you fall behind, you will be beaten. This is definitely not the law of nature. Why? Just ask why. Wait until I see Chang and Fixiang and avenge you. GLUO found a shady place, sat on the ground, and let the 2 girls rest their heads on his legs so that he could sleep more comfortably. Looking at the 2 girls sleeping sweetly, GLUO's originally impetuous mood slowly calmed down. Although he is a little miserable now, he can't be as miserable as them. They didn't show any tangled and painful expressions. What kind of inner drama is he doing? He might as well think of a way. I don't know what's going on with Kichudi. Before GLUO came to Fan Meng again, he agreed with Kichudi that he would contact her informant once a day, and he didn't need to report anything, just report that he was safe. But last night, GLUO had no way to contact the informant at all, and Kichudi didn't know how bad it was. There is no way. The grassland is bare and there is no signal. His cell phone cannot be used. What can you do to him? Before coming, Kichudi actually said that she would give GLUO a satellite phone, which can be used to contact anywhere, but later she gave up. That thing is safe for calls, but too few people use it. If something really happens, it is easy to check, and you will be caught by following the clues. So, GLUO found a second-hand cell phone that someone else had used. The number information was all someone else's. When chatting, you must change your voice. That's it, and you can't say too many words. There is no way. The 19th National Security Bureau is strong. As one of the 2 most powerful countries in the world, the manpower and material resources it can mobilize are almost unimaginable for ordinary people. Even if it is much weaker than the most powerful country in the world, once it involves mobilization capabilities and resource concentration, it is definitely the first in the solar system. Therefore, Kichudi and GLUO can't be too careful. It's difficult. It's really difficult for me. GLUO lay on the grass, feeling a sharp pain in his back, but what can he do? He can only bear it. Wolves, where are you? GLUO closed his eyes and muttered about wolves. He felt like he wanted to sleep for a while, But suddenly, he smelled a bloody smell. He immediately opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. This is. GLUO felt the wind direction and looked far away. All he saw were some tiny dots. But through the gentle wind, GLUO could clearly smell the fresh smell of blood. The wolves have hunted successfully. They are eating, and, not far away. Chapter 340, Sleepiness. The distant smell of blood was mixed in the wind. It was actually very faint at such a long distance, but GLUO's sense of smell was extremely sensitive now, and he still confirmed the location of the wolf pack. Found the target. GLUO rubbed his hands, a little expectant and a little nervous. Now that the wolf pack had found it, would his wild idea work? Others were hiding from the wolf pack, but he followed the wolf pack. If something really happened, GLUO would not be afraid, but the state of the Izumo sisters would be very troublesome. Well, let's take it one step at a time. Anyway, we have to find a water source today. GLUO had no good choice now. He could only pick up the two girls again and walk towards the direction of the wolf pack. Under the scorching sun at noon, the temperature on the grassland was also annoyingly hot. GLUO walked for half an hour and saw the wolf pack. Unlike what GLUO imagined, the whole wolf pack had only 8 wolves in total. They were lying lazily on the grass. Not far away were 2 wild sheep corpses that had been eaten. GLUO did not get too close, keeping a distance of about 100 meters, and the wolves did not seem to attack him. Some were resting, some were playing, as if they did not notice him. This kind of non-aggression is undoubtedly the best state. GLUO did not plan to attack the wolves now, but just wanted to find a water source. GLUO put the 2 girls in the shade, sat on the meadow, and monitored the actions of the wolves. GLUO was not worried about his own safety, he was just worried about the safety of the Izumo sisters. The wolves in the wild are very cunning, and if they are not handled properly, they will be very dangerous. However, the situation was not as complicated as GLUO imagined. GLUO watched them for more than an hour. The wolves, who were full, did not move, and most of them even began to close their eyes and take a nap. GLUO yawned and moved his position to make his collapsed posture more upright. GLUO did not sleep all night last night, and now the sun is so good that he can't help but want to sleep. I'm so sleepy. GLUO rubbed his nose and tried to cheer himself up, but the physical fatigue was too heavy. GLUO barely woke up for more than 10 minutes, but he became more and more confused. Finally, he lay on the ground and fell asleep without realizing it. Cold, deep in the bone marrow, as if to freeze the soul. In the deep dream, GLUO suddenly felt inexplicably cold. He rubbed his arms and slowly opened his eyes. What he saw was the snow flying all over the sky. Where is this? GLUO got up from the ground, as if he was awakened, but he slipped on the thick snow on the ground, and fell into the school with a bang, leaving the outline of a figure on the ground. Am I dreaming? GLUO spit out the snow in his mouth, and climbed up carefully from the snow. His memory was still there. He was walking on the grassland. How could there be a sudden snowstorm? GLUO stretched out his hand and grasped the snow on the ground, feeling the coolness, and then rubbed the snow on his arms, basically confirming that he was in a dream. He was shirtless now. If all this was true, with such a strong snowstorm, even if he was an evolver, he would definitely feel cold. But now, no matter how GLUO tried, he could only feel a slight coolness. More importantly, GLUO tried to eat a few mouthfuls of snow, but found that it had no effect on his thirst. Can't I stand the sun, so I hid in the snowstorm in my dream. GLUO looked around carefully, but didn't find anything. The Izumo sisters were gone, and it seemed that they didn't seem to be in the dream. There are wolves outside, how can I wake up? GLUO only remembered at this time that he was still in danger in reality. He jumped a few times and tried to wake himself up, but it didn't work. This doesn't seem like a normal dream. GLUO rubbed his chin, looking at the thick snow around him, and felt a little scared. The environment around GLUO was just like the scene during a snowstorm. Although he knew he was dreaming, it was because it was a dream that the snowstorm was exaggerated. It looked like goose feathers, which was terrifying. GLUO, come on, I'm waiting for you. I've been waiting for you. Suddenly, a faint call came from the snowstorm, and the voice sounded resentful and expectant. Who are you? GLUO couldn't tell who the owner of the voice was, but he could vaguely tell that it was a female voice. He shouted very loudly, but was mostly blocked by the snowstorm. GLUO, it's me. It can only be me. I've missed you for too long. Come here. What's your name? GLUO had already found the direction where the voice came from, but he felt that something was strange, so he didn't move forward immediately, but just asked, GLUO, don't you remember me? How long has it been? Too long. It shouldn't have been so long. In the snow, the whispering female voice was crazy. She seemed to have noticed something wrong. Her words began to contradict herself, as if she was asking, and as if she was answering. GLUO, I remember you. I always remember you. I have remembered you for too long. Too long. So long that I have forgotten who you are. Who are you? I don't remember you. Who are you? GLUO looked up at the snowstorm. It was the most magnificent scenery during the snowstorm. It seemed that half of the sky had turned into snow, flowing vertically like a waterfall, shaking the earth. You don't remember me? How is it possible? You can't forget me. You said that you would always remember me. You promised. I don't believe you would lie to me. I don't believe it. The ethereal female voice seemed to be frightened by GLUO. Her voice became panicked, but she quickly denied her judgment with words, as if she was deceiving herself, and she was firm in the judgment she had always insisted on. As the woman's voice became distracted, the snow and wind that enveloped GLUO became even more terrifying, as if a huge beast was roaring on the ground, and the wind was so loud that it was deafening. Don't worry, if I promised that I would not forget you, I would definitely not forget you. I just missed you. I wanted to see you. GLUO was frightened by the change in the environment. He did not dare to provoke the owner of the voice again. Instead, he tried to reassure her, and even better, he would look at her face to confirm who she was. If it weren't for such a strong snow and wind, I would definitely remember you. The wind was so loud that your voice was blown away. I couldn't hear it clearly, and I couldn't hear it familiar. GLUO, is that so? Is that so? That's great. I know you haven't forgotten me, and I haven't forgotten you. The owner of the voice seemed to be really comforted by GLUO. Her voice softened, and the snow and wind also softened a lot. At least the wind was not so loud. Chapter 341, A Long-Lasting Face. GLUO did not expect that his comfort would be so effective. As the wind and snow eased, GLUO was sure that the cause of the snowstorm was the owner of that voice. How long have we not seen each other? We have not seen each other for too long. I want to see you. Let me see you, okay? GLUO stood in the snowstorm, his palms spread out, feeling the falling snowflakes. It was a little chilly, but not uncomfortable, but a little comfortable. GLUO, do you want to see me? You should want to see me. I want to see you too. I have always wanted to see you. After the wind subsided, the distant female voice became clearer. GLUO was finally able to figure out her voice and judge her identity. Yes, I really want to see you. I came here just to see you. GLUO thought for a long time, but he couldn't figure out who the owner of this voice was, but he was sure that this voice was very familiar, very familiar. It's great you really came to see me, for the last time. The female voice at this time was somewhat sighing and relieved. She sighed, and the wind and snow stopped. But then, GLUO heard her singing, listen, the white-breathed wolves are running, and the giant whales with unicorns are cruising. The land and the ocean are quiet, but they have already begun to sing the poem of winter. In the stopped wind, GLUO was finally able to hear the girl's voice clearly. GLUO's pupils suddenly widened, as if he felt something, and turned his body desperately. At that moment, the winter wind stopped, the frosty snow stopped, the pale world was opened like a curtain. The scene in the distance was instantly pulled closer, the world was distorted, and then it became normal. After it became normal, GLUO saw the owner of the voice, Sukinghan. GLUO simply couldn't believe it, or he couldn't understand why he saw her at this time. However, at this time, Sukinghan was frozen in the ice. She closed her eyes, like a sleeping beauty who couldn't wake up. Sukinghan. GLUO didn't know what this dream was about, but he had an inexplicable sense of crisis, as if he didn't catch Sukinghan now, she would leave far away and never come back. Sukinghan. So GLUO took a step and tried his best to rush to Sukinghan. He stretched out his hand desperately, as if he wanted to touch the ice that froze her with his fingertips. However, in a trance, the space began to be infinitely stretched away. No matter how GLUO ran, he couldn't touch Sukinghan. GLUO ran and shouted, and he didn't know how long he ran, but he could only watch Sukinghan getting farther and farther away, and finally, disappeared. Sukinghan. GLUO suddenly opened his eyes and shouted Sukinghan's name loudly. He propped up his body and saw an endless grassland. Just now, was that a dream? GLUO wiped his face and found that he had sweated a lot, but the strange thing was that the sweat hung on his forehead and condensed into a thin layer of ice, but GLUO didn't feel cold at all. GLUO rubbed his forehead and thin ice crystals fell down. GLUO looked at the pure and transparent ice layer, and his thoughts were scattered for a while. How could it be? What's the reason? GLUO looked around and found that the wolf pack he was tracking was still not far away. The strange thing was that the 8 wolves were now lying on the grass and sleeping soundly. Is it a wild spirit? GLUO raised his head and looked at the setting sun, his brows twisted into a knot. It was really too weird. GLUO felt that only a few minutes had passed in the dream, but in fact, 8 or 9 hours had passed. It was noon before, but now it was sunset. Why, the heavenly blade in my right hand doesn't sense. GLUO thought about it carefully, and the more he thought about it, the more wrong it was. His physical strength was such that he could be full of energy, even if he didn't sleep for 3 or 5 days, let alone one night. However, in the morning, he sat here, looking at the wolves, and fell asleep inexplicably, without even the most basic awareness of prevention. GLUO felt that he must have been attacked, but he was not sure what was plotting against him. Anyway, it shouldn't be a wild soul, otherwise, the heavenly blade in GLUO's right hand would definitely sense it. What could be on this deserted grassland? GLUO scratched his hair and couldn't figure out the situation for a while. Since he didn't pay attention and was attacked by something, then according to reason, there should be something wrong. However, GLUO checked around and found that he was healthy, and not only was he not injured, but he was unexpectedly in good spirits, and even the feeling of hunger and thirst was gone. Izumo ZHI and Izumo Yun were also fast asleep now. They slept very soundly and did not look injured. Izumo Yun's fever even subsided. What is this? A blessing in disguise? GLUO pulled his hair, feeling that he had overlooked something very important. He was quite flustered, but he did not know what went wrong. Why is it a little cold? GLUO rubbed his arms and suddenly felt a little cold. Although GLUO was shirtless, his body should not be so cold resistant. Brothers, are you awake? GLUO raised his head and felt that the atmosphere was not normal. On the meadow in front of him, the sleeping wolves were waking up. It was unknown what kind of dream these 8 wolves had. Anyway, at this time, their pupils had turned into a clear blue color of frost. They stood up from the ground and slowly approached GLUO. It was because they were close that GLUO noticed the expansion of the wolf pack. My goodness, before, a wolf was only slightly bigger than a dog, but now they all looked like they had taken hormones. The smallest one was almost as big as a calf. The most majestic wolf leader was now the size of an old ox. With its mouth open, it could fit GLUO's entire head in. Well, don't we keep to ourselves? GLUO tried to communicate with words, but he obviously failed. The wolf pack, which had already walked within 20 to 30 meters, stared at him with cold eyes, as if they were looking at their prey. GLUO did not run away with the Izumo sisters, because he knew that he could not outrun 8 wolves. When wolves hunt, they drive their prey away, let it run as much as it wants, and wait until it is exhausted, before giving it a fatal blow. Moreover, wolves are animals with copper heads, iron spines, and tofu waists. They usually bite the neck or throat of their prey. When facing a wolf pack, you must be careful of your back. Give me some face. I have no intention of being your enemy. Take me to the water source, and we will go our separate ways. How about it? Chapter 342. Seeing people like flowers. GLUO tried to communicate with the wolves while looking at them carefully. GLUO was not stupid, of course. He also knew that the wolves would not understand human language. However, the wild beasts of the 4th silver rank could understand human language. In order to confirm this, verbal probing was undoubtedly the best way. Fortunately, the thing that GLUO was most worried about did not happen. There were no highly intelligent wild beasts in the wolf pack. In other words, the IQ of these 8 wolves was very worrying. They just stared at GLUO and surrounded him little by little, but they were not smart at all. The swollen wolves looked very creepy. When they breathed, white air was visible to the naked eye. It was not winter now. Normally, it was impossible to see mist when breathing, but these wolves breathed with frost and cold temperature, which directly dyed the green grass on the ground white and even froze it. Ice-type wild wolves. They looked like ordinary beasts before. GLUO really couldn't figure out what happened before, but the current situation was really difficult. While he was thinking, 8 wild wolves had surrounded GLUO in a semicircle. They were only a dozen meters away from GLUO. It only took a few breaths for them to pounce on GLUO together. As the situation became tense, a cold wind suddenly blew by. It was really a gust of wind that only appeared in the cold winter, so cold that it made people's teeth chatter. It was cold deep into the bone marrow, and it seemed to freeze the soul. His GLUO was stimulated by the cold wind and shuddered violently. He felt as if he squinted his eyes and rubbed them hurriedly with his hands. The discomfort in his eyes came and went quickly. GLUO only rubbed a few times, and it returned to normal. But when he raised his head again, he suddenly found that the 8 wild wolves surrounding him began to retreat. The wolves were very careful when they surrounded him, but they retreated very quickly, almost like soldiers summoned by military orders. The wolves turned around and ran, and the speed of turning was so fast that GLUO could not even react. Leaving now? GLUO had been prepared for a good fight, but he never expected that things would turn around so quickly. In the cold wind, GLUO stood alone on the grass, looking a bit like a villain who hadn't finished his lines yet. That's it. GLUO scratched his hair and couldn't figure out what was going on. It didn't matter, it didn't affect him anyway. It was already dark, and there was no point in continuing to travel. So GLUO simply sat on the meadow and prepared to rest for another night. Originally, the matter of the Izumo sisters was very urgent, forcing GLUO to find water and food as soon as possible. But looking at their current situation, it seemed that there was no need to worry about this problem. Tomorrow, where should I go? GLUO lay on the ground, put his palms behind his head, and looked at the sky with interest. Unlike the night sky in the city, the sky on the grassland is really pure and high, and the stars in the sky are like lake light, which makes people intoxicated. GLUO didn't actually do anything physically demanding that day, but he was very tired, as if he had spent a lot of energy. Staring at the brilliant starry sky, GLUO's thoughts drifted farther and farther. At first, he could still think of the arrangements between Sukinghan and the Chuan sisters, but later he had no idea. He fast forwarded to the moment when Sukinghan had woken up and ran to find him, saving him from his current predicament. Really, looking forward to it. GLUO was dreaming in a trance. Unconsciously, he closed his eyes and entered a very beautiful dream. In the dream, GLUO heard the footsteps of Sukinghan. He heard her walk to his side, calling his name softly, and gave him a soft knee pillow. When he called her name, she responded to him in a low voice. No matter how many times she called her name, she was not tired. This dream was very real, so real that GLUO could even understand that he had a dream. The things he expected were too extravagant, and he didn't even dare to think about them in his dreams. Sukinghan. GLUO didn't know how long he had slept, but he woke up from his dream in a daze, unconsciously called Sukinghan's name, and then he heard a HMM. Missed you. GLUO felt that the previous dream was too happy, so he didn't even want to wake up. He changed his posture and moved his cheeks with satisfaction. However, the touch on GLUO's cheek was not the rough feeling of the grass, but a very comfortable cotton texture. Moreover, For some reason, Gielluo could suddenly smell a fragrance, a very light fragrance, a little cool, and a little seductive. Sukinghan, I'm here. Yeah. That's great. Gielluo still thought he was still in a dream. He gave a very perverted smile and rubbed his cheek again, but as he rubbed, Gielluo felt something was wrong. Huh? Am I awake? Am I awake? I should be awake. Although Gielluo closed his eyes, he had already noticed something was wrong. Gielluo closed his mouth and rubbed his cheek again, making sure that he was not lying on the grass. Gielluo, good morning. Gielluo dragged out a long nasal sound and slowly opened his eyes. In the cool morning sunlight, Gielluo saw the girl he had been thinking about day and night, with her head lowered, looking at him with sparkling eyes, as if she had thousands of words to say to him. Sukinghan? Gielluo rested his head on Sukinghan's thigh, looking at the girl's cheek within reach, blinked a few times, and couldn't even make the most appropriate response. It's me, I'm here. Sukinghan nodded gently, looking at Gielluo's somewhat unbelievable eyes, gently held his right hand, then took his hand and put it on his cheek. I'm Sukinghan, Gielluo. I'm here. You're awake. It's good that you're awake. Gielluo touched Sukinghan's slightly cold cheek, and a silly smile first appeared on his face, and then he started crying. Sukinghan had been in a coma for such a long time. Who knew how worried he was? He stayed by her side and couldn't sleep all night. He was not a sentimental person, but because of her, he couldn't help but think about it. Many times, Gielluo even thought that Sukinghan might have woken up, but couldn't control her body. For this reason, Gielluo even bought books on caring for vegetative people. He would sing to her and tell her all kinds of stories, just hoping that she could respond even a little bit, even if it was just moving her eyeballs. Unfortunately, she didn't. She was like the sleeping beauty in the castle, sleeping soundly all the time, without response or answer. Gielluo had no way at all. He could only wait. Gielluo knew that Sukinghan cared about Mu Yingluo's news, so he tried his best to track down useful information, and even went abroad for this, and ended up on the grassland. Chapter 343, Response. Gielluo, I'm sorry for making you worry. Sukinghan lowered her head, stroking Gielluo's cheek, like she was comforting a child. She wiped away his tears, her voice soft and gentle. I don't remember so much. I just had a long dream, a mess in the dream, and when I woke up, I didn't know what happened. It's okay, just remember me. Gielluo felt a little embarrassed for crying as a grown man. He got up from Sukinghan's knees and wiped the tears from his face. How did you get here? Secret. Sukinghan put his index finger to his lips and blinked mischievously. Gielluo smiled helplessly and was about to ask more, but suddenly froze. The beating just now was so impactful that Gielluo was only happy and didn't notice Sukinghan's changes, but at this time, Gielluo finally discovered that Sukinghan's originally black hair had turned into a light blue like ice crystals. Sukinghan, your hair? How is it? Does it look good? This color is pretty good, right? Sukinghan pulled her hair back, and the long ice blue hair fluttered in the sun, shining brightly and unusually beautiful. It looks good. Gielluo frowned and praised reluctantly. The reason why Gielluo was unwilling was not that he thought the ice blue hair was not good looking. Strictly speaking, Sukinghan's hair color had an extraordinary color, the kind of misty feeling with a faint flow of source power, almost with a gorgeous special effect, beautiful beyond words. However, Gielluo would not forget that the reason for this hair color was that Sukinghan integrated the 6th gold level holy relic, Winter Poem, and the hair turned into this color, which was actually one of the costs. And the reason why Sukinghan used such means was, in the final analysis, because of Gielluo. She was to save Gielluo at that time. She wanted him to live. Gielluo, what's wrong? After integrating the Winter Poem, Sukinghan's already vibrant skin became even more moisturized, and the tiny pores were completely invisible. Her skin was as white as jade, white and rosy, without any flaws. The girl should be exactly 1.7 meters tall. Now she was kneeling on the ground. Her upper body was straight, revealing her flexible body lines. The curve of her chest was not the plump type, but the kind of straight without any burden. The long ice blue hair hung down behind the girl. Because it had been cut once, it only reached the bottom of the girl's chest ribs. Perhaps because she had been paying attention to GLUO, the long hair at the girl's temples was a little messy, covering her flawless ears. Women dressed to please themselves. Sukinghan faced GLUO's gaze and looked at him without avoiding him. The smile on the corner of her mouth could not be suppressed. The girl's eyebrows were like willows, her pure black eyes were clear and deep, her light pink lips were shining, and her well-proportioned facial features were arranged to show a sense of exquisiteness like carving. Sukinghan doesn't have too much sharpness and scrutiny, but when she just looks at you, she will have dark thoughts in her heart, which makes people feel ashamed. At this time, Sukinghan has completely lost her past indifference and indifference, and even the sushi-independent temperament of the girl is integrated into her smile. Now she is like a girl who has walked out of GLUO's dream. She understands GLUO's feelings, just as GLUO also understands her feelings. GLUO, am I pretty? Pretty. GLUO nodded gently, but his eyes never left the girl's cheek. He looked at her, as if he wanted to imprint her in his eyes, and in his heart forever. GLUO, I like you. Sukinghan looked like he had mustered up the courage, and it seemed like he blurted it out lightly. GLUO didn't expect Sukinghan to say that. He opened his eyes wide and even froze in place for a while. Sukinghan, confess to him? Normally, he should confess first. No, he seems to have confessed. So, now, Sukinghan responded to him, I like you too. GLUO felt a little tearful. He was already 24 years old and had been in love before, but at this moment, he seemed innocent and stupid, like a child. I know. Sukinghan nodded heavily. The girl pursed her lips, then suddenly supported the ground with her palms and leaned forward. Then, her cheek approached GLUO, slightly tilted her cheek. Her light blue hair fell, like a curtain covering GLUO's eyes, and her soft lips were imprinted on GLUO's lips like falling flowers. It was a very gentle, shy, but courageous kiss. The shyness and passion of the girl were almost unconcealable. GLUO was surprised at first, then passive, then responded, and finally, took the initiative. Ha, ha, cough cough cough. Sukinghan pushed GLUO away with a little force, and then began to pant. This was Sukinghan's first kiss. Although it was filled with great courage, it was still a little immature when it came to the actual kiss. I even forgot to breathe through my nose. Sukinghan tugged at the tip of her hair, revealing a slightly embarrassed expression. Although Sukinghan's tone didn't sound much different now, in fact, the girl's shy cheeks were a little hot, and her jade-colored earlobes were tinged with a light pink hue, which was extremely conspicuous among her hair. GLUO didn't know what to say now. He could only smile foolishly. What else could he say? Happy, happy. This was really a dream come true, and it could even be said that he didn't dare to dream of such a beautiful dream. Sukinghan really responded to him. She also liked him. She was his girlfriend. Sukinghan, did you drive here? How are we going back? GLUO looked at Sukinghan's shy expression and knew that it was not appropriate to force him too much, so he changed the subject at the right time. Sukinghan heard GLUO's question, looked up at him, blinked, shook his head, and nodded. There is a road not far away. We can just stop a car there. Sukinghan pointed to the east. GLUO turned his head and looked, but did not see the road that Sukinghan mentioned. Obviously, there is a big conceptual gap between Sukinghan's not far away and GLUO's not far away. GLUO, these two kids. Sukinghan had already completed the reunion process at this time and began to question his girlfriend. GLUO was still smiling foolishly, but when he was asked by Sukinghan's words, he was immediately dumbfounded. Fuck, I completely forgot that Izumo Zhi and Izumo Yun, these two 12-year-old children, were still wearing his coat. To be precise, the two girls were not wearing anything except GLUO's coat. Sukinghan, don't get me wrong. I didn't do anything illegal. What happened between the two of them is not what you think. Chapter 344, Weapons of Murder. Not what I thought. What was it like? Sukinghan looked at GLUO's impatient expression, and at first he showed a questioning expression, but soon he couldn't hold it back, and turned it into a bright smile. GLUO, I understand. Don't be so anxious. I understand. And I didn't misunderstand you. I just want to know what happened to them. Okay. GLUO finally felt relieved when he found out that Su Qinghan didn't mean to misunderstand. He changed his sitting position, picked up a piece of grass, and played with it in his hand, and began to tell Su Qinghan about his experience along the way. Hey Sheng, I've heard of this organization too. They seem to want to create gods. What? Create gods? GLUO didn't expect that Su Qinghan had actually heard of He Sheng. After learning that GLUO killed Heiku Duhan, Su Qinghan didn't show any worried expression, but was very appreciative. Yes, the Black Voice organization is said to have originated in England. They robbed the famous Holy Relic and slaughtered nearly 10,000 people for it. Famous Holy Relic? The Sword in the Stone. When GLUO heard that Black Voice originated from England, he immediately thought of King Arthur. His Sword in the Stone was definitely the most famous legend. However, wasn't the Sword in the Stone interrupted by an unjust duel? It would be more reliable to replace it with the Sword in the Lake. No, that Holy Relic is called the Spear of Longinus. Although Su Qinghan didn't care much about Black Voice, he was very serious about the Spear of Longinus. Fuck. That's really a holy relic. GLUO was really scared by the name of the Spear of Longinus. According to the Bible, the Virgin Mary was conceived by the Holy Spirit and gave birth to Jesus in Bethlehem. Jesus began to preach and spread the gospel at the age of 30. He was later accused by the Jewish priest Caiaphas, tried by the Roman governor of the province of Judea, Pontius Pilate, and crucified. In order to verify whether Jesus was really dead, a centurion stabbed his side with a spear. The centurion was called Longinus. When Jesus' blood dripped into Longinus' eyes, Longinus was instantly moved. He gave up his original identity and became a monk and had the ability to perform miracles. Later, he was posthumously recognized as a saint and called Saint Longinus. This originally ordinary spear became a religious holy object, the Spear of Longinus, because it was used to verify whether Jesus was dead and stained with Jesus' blood. Some people in later generations called it the Spear of Destiny. According to legend, as long as you hold the gun, everyone within a range of 120 feet will surrender. The person holding the gun can dominate the fate of the world, but those who lose it will die immediately. In the ancient empire, this gun became a symbol of power. Many monarchs with outstanding military achievements won countless battles with this gun in their hands. The Spear of Longinus is indeed very powerful, but it is not as magical as the legend says. I suspect that the real purpose of He Sheng is the blood of Jesus stained on the tip of the gun. In order to deal with Tang Zujian, Su Qinghan has been in the streets and the black market countless times, and he is very familiar with these news. Qinghan, do you mean that they want to create a god based on the Spear of Longinus? GLUO changed the way he addressed Su Qinghan unconsciously. The girl pursed her lips and glanced at him, revealing a faint smile. Who knows? Anyway, He Sheng has been notorious over the years. Their methods are too cruel, and death is everywhere wherever they go. But, they are said to have a method that can make people become stronger quickly, and many people have joined them for this reason. Speaking of this, I have a pair of daggers here. GLUO took out the pair of daggers called Butcher's Knife from his body, and handed them to Su Qinghan. Su Qinghan took the daggers, looked at them carefully, and his expression was a little solemn. GLUO, is this what you got when you killed Heiku Duhan? Well, the scene when he took out the pair of daggers at that time, I will never forget it. GLUO still remembers that Duhan put the pair of daggers in his body, and the scene when he took them out was almost like cutting open his stomach. This pair of daggers should be a holy relic of 4th silver level. After listening to GLUO's description, Su Qinghan tapped the blade lightly, waved it twice, and handed it to GLUO. Its function should be to kill living things, or even, it may be a holy relic specifically for killing humans. At least, I can see that it can make people bleed. 4th silver level holy relic? GLUO took the dagger and looked at it carefully, but he didn't see its extraordinariness. But at this time, GLUO suddenly remembered that the pair of daggers did not collapse at the first touch of his right hand. This degree of solidity is indeed extraordinary. This dagger is too bloody and is not a good weapon. Don't use it if you can. Sukinghan obviously didn't like the pair of daggers called slaughter knives. They were stained with the deaths and resentment of too many people. It was to the point that a living person would feel uncomfortable holding them, but Gluo was very thick-skinned and didn't feel anything. Okay, I don't plan to use it either. Gluo trusted Sukinghan very much, and he didn't need the daggers, so he put them away. Sukinghan looked at Gluo's indifferent expression and couldn't help but reach out to remove the grass stems from his hair. Gluo didn't feel anything, but laughed, seeming to like Sukinghan's natural closeness. 4th silver level holy relics are quite rare. Sukinghan didn't know whether Gluo was a country bumpkin or he really believed in himself. 4th silver level holy relics are already a treasure that ordinary evolvers can only encounter but not seek. To put it in an analogy, it's like everyone usually earns 10,000 a month, but this job pays 100,000 a month. Really? How much is it worth? Gluo didn't care too much. The weapons he imagined were preferably spears, and then long swords. Anyway, daggers were not as useful as his fists. Very valuable. Sukinghan dragged out a long tone and gave Gluo an inexplicable answer. She didn't tell Gluo that the price of 4th silver level holy relics on the black market was about $100 million US. This pair of daggers looks normal, but in fact, it is because it is in Gluo's hand and Gluo has something that can completely suppress it, so it looks ordinary, similar to a larger fruit knife. But in fact, just when Sukinghan took it in his hand, the daggers began to stir, and Sukinghan could even feel its thirst for blood. This pair of daggers is definitely a very fierce weapon. Sukinghan could hardly imagine that a 4th silver level evolver holding such a pair of daggers was defeated by Gluo. Gluo, you are not short of money now, so don't think about selling it. Carry it with you. It may be useful in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345, Round. That's right. Gluo agreed to Sukinghan's opinion without much hesitation. He really didn't lack money now, and he wasn't in a hurry to calculate this. Although the $2 million that Fenijaya should give had not yet been received, Gluo would have plenty of opportunities to ask for it in the future, and he certainly wouldn't dare not give it. Gluo, what are you going to do with these 2 children? Sukinghan had already understood Gluo's experience along the way, and had already made a judgment of the priorities in his heart. Although Heli Sheng had made an enemy, the other party was only notorious in the world, but in fact, his power in the country was pitiful, and the threat was not that great. As for Fenijaya and Seiyi, their situation in Fanmeng was worrying. The death of Heli Kuduhan would definitely let Heli Sheng find them, and whether they could survive was a question mark. If Chang Confetti wanted to, she would be a dead man in Sukinghan's eyes. She had already had a plan in her mind, so she deliberately kept silent at this time, and instead pulled the topic to the 2 sisters, to divert Gluo's attention. It's not easy for the 2 sisters. Although they have some power now, humans can't tolerate them after all, and the evolvers may covet them. Yeah. Gluo scratched his hair, and was very worried about this. The 2-headed wolf after the Izumo sisters merged is indeed powerful. The power of the 3 blue steel level can suppress the 4th silver level evolvers. But the problem is that the 2 of them have no power and can't compete much with ordinary people. After the 2-headed wolf formens, they sleep like dead pigs. Not to mention other evolvers, even an ordinary person can easily kill them. Moreover, the 20-meter body of the 2-headed wolf is too conspicuous in the city. It is the kind that cannot be concealed. Once it is stared at, it will definitely not be able to escape. Of course, the messy city of Fanmeng is not included. The political party is going to be finished, so why mention it? They both have strange abilities. They must be research objects if they are caught by the country. If they are caught by Heli Sheng, they must be used as humanoid weapons. Gluo has seen through it. The world is getting worse and worse. In the past few years, the whole world has been covering up what happened, but now everyone is starting to reveal the mystery little by little, so that everyone can be mentally prepared. In other words, the National Security Bureau 19 is really powerful, and it has blocked information well, avoiding large-scale shocks. However, since the beginning of this year, GLUO found that the information control on the internet has also begun to relax. The country is undoubtedly gradually revealing everything. Alas, the people have been rescued. What else can we do? We can't watch them die. GLUO thought before that, since Feni Jaya and Sei wanted to open an orphanage, it would be appropriate to hand over the Izumo sisters to them. But now, after knowing the fighting power of the two sisters, GLUO gave up this plan. There is no way. He doesn't trust Feni Jaya, and is worried that Chang'an will not want to. In the end, GLUO can only bring people back to China. If nothing else, at least they can be a good hand for the crisis rescue group, although they can't be used lightly. How are you going to take it back? We are still staying at the rooftop now. Su Qinghan winked at GLUO, fully expressing the tacit understanding between the two. GLUO came out secretly, and she was no exception. Anyway, no matter how big a trouble she caused outside, she could directly get rid of the suspicion. What do you think? GLUO was also very angry about this. It was not suitable for the Chuan sisters to appear around them rashly now. They still needed to find a place to settle down first, but the problem was who would take care of them after settling there? I suggest that we go find Jiang Yu. Su Qinghan suddenly mentioned a name that GLUO almost forgot. GLUO raised his head and saw Su Qinghan with a calm expression on his face, as if this choice was the most natural. Qinghan, I didn't expect you to know Jiang Yu. We met by chance. Although Su Qinghan said it lightly, it undoubtedly showed that she had contact with Jiang Yu, and even had a good impression of this contact, which made Su Qinghan trust her a little. Okay, let's give it a try. GLUO undoubtedly listened to Su Qinghan's advice. Although he said he would give it a try, in fact, GLUO would not be able to get the person back in a short time after he handed the person over to Jiang Yu. At least, he had to wait until Mu Yingluo's matter was settled before GLUO had the time and mood to think about welcoming the Chuan sisters home. Okay, let's get started. Su Qinghan has now become a member of the optimistic family. She smiled and took off her coat, walked to Chuan, turned her back to GLUO, took off her autumn clothes, and put her coat on her. GLUO, here you go. Thank you. GLUO took the autumn clothes thrown by Su Qinghan and put them on. After 2 days of being shirtless, he finally had a piece of clothing outside. Su Qinghan probably came in a hurry. Anyway, he had nothing, so he could only put on his coat for them like GLUO. The nearest city is still a little far. We have to go to the street to catch a ride. Su Qinghan blinked at GLUO, and without saying any more nonsense, he directly picked up Izumo Yunkei. You decide. GLUO was already lost like a fool anyway, so he didn't argue about it. He carefully picked up Izumo's ZHI, trying not to touch the girl's tender body. Then let's walk. Su Qinghan picked up Izumo Yunkei, who was still sleeping, and carefully adjusted the girl's posture to make her more comfortable, and then led the way in front. At this time, because Su Qinghan changed the topic too naturally, GLUO didn't feel that Su Qinghan was avoiding talking to him, and didn't want him to delve into certain things. Moreover, the Izumo sisters were pushed out by Su Qinghan, which distracted GLUO's attention very well, and directly led his thinking to other places, covering up many abnormal places. Even GLUO didn't realize that Su Qinghan's decision to leave was so hasty. GLUO had just woken up for less than half an hour, and the things he talked about were very vague, so they were all put on hold. When they walked, because they were holding someone in their arms, they didn't talk about important things, and the topic turned to all sorts of things. GLUO was actually very curious about Su Qinghan's experiences over the years, especially her travels between various cities and the nickname Frost Disaster. GLUO couldn't ask directly, so he brought up the topic indirectly. Su Qinghan turned her head and looked at him, which made GLUO feel a little embarrassed, but the girl didn't hide it, but talked about the past very frankly. from beginning to end. Soo-kyung didn't mean to talk about her childhood, so Gluo didn't ask. Of course, Soo-kyung didn't ask Gluo about his original talent, the reason why he approached her, or his past with Kichudi. Gluo didn't take the initiative to mention it. Chapter 346, Regret of the Night Rain on the Riverbank. 9:13 on April 30th, 3006. The beginning of summer is approaching, and the greenery in the noisy city is beginning to wake up. The people coming and going on the road are still in a hurry, but between their eyebrows, one can see a trace of expectation and joy. The holiday is coming. Kika-neon, you should have a holiday tomorrow. Why are you so free today? Jiang-a-nyu lazily nestled in the chair. It was rare that she didn't drink. She reached into the drawer and took out a box of chicken feet for soaking feet. After tearing open the package, she began to eat it leisurely. Minister, I didn't skip class today for no reason. I asked the teacher for leave again. Kika-neon was sitting on the inside of the hut, holding a mobile phone, controlling a girl with cat ear hairstyle and twin ponytails to fight a fat-toed dragon. Cut off the clutter. Ah, good scraping. Kika-neon was mumbling something, but the character she was controlling looked very miserable. After only 2 hits, he fell down with a scream. Ah, my wife. Kika-neon let out a shrill scream, and Jiang-a-nyu spat out a bone, rolled his eyes, while sitting on the chair. What reason did you use to ask for leave? I said my period came. Ah, hemorrhaging. Kika-neon was still answering Jiang-a-nyu's words, but who knew that she had just said half of it when the girl with curly twin tails on her screen also died, and the sigh that Kika-neon made casually made her words sound weird. That's not right, Kika-neon. How many times have you used this excuse this month? The 4th time. Kika-neon didn't think there was anything wrong with what she said. She was so righteous. She exited the dungeon and ran to the statue to replenish blood. It's okay, Minister. Don't worry, my head teacher won't mind. Alas, Kika-neon, you can't do this. Your period comes 4 times a month, and each time is once a week. Although Jiang-a-nyu has always been extremely lazy, procrastinating whenever possible, and being perfunctory whenever possible, she has now realized that she has failed in education. No, it should be said that in terms of leading by example, she has successfully led Kika-neon astray with her bad habits. What about asking for leave because of period? It was she who spread it, but that was a serious matter. At that time, Kika-neon was practicing shooting hard every day and could not run away, so she could only think of a way to ask for leave. When Kika-neon asked her what the reason was, Jiang-a-nyu habitually evaded the question, but she never expected that Kika-neon would use this as the reason for asking for leave from then on. Her head teacher at least knew about it. It was a code. Those who didn't know would think that Kika-neon was suffering from a terminal illness and was going to bleed to death. Kika-neon, you are too complacent. I'm very worried. It's okay, Minister. I think what you said in the past is very true. Going to school and studying depends on talent. People with good talent don't need to learn much, but people with poor talent can't learn, no matter how hard they try. Kika-neon's fallacies were not concealed at all. Of course, this was inherited by Jiang-a-nyu. After listening to Kika-neon's words, Jiang-a-nyu took a breath of cold air, as if he had a toothache, and felt that he was too stupid back then. At that time, Kika-neon was such a good child. He believed everything she said, and he was cute, obedient, and hardworking. Unlike now, he has learned a lot of bad habits from me. My goodness, he is lazy, greedy, and casual. It's a complete mess. Oh, I regret it now. Jiang-a-nyu smacked his lips twice, threw the empty box into the trash can, and stretched out on the chair. Kika-neon, you are about to take the high school entrance examination. At least, give me some strength. It's okay, it's a piece of cake. I have been recommended to high school, so I don't have to take the high school entrance examination. Kika-neon was so lazy that she felt at ease. Jiang-a-nyu couldn't help but frowned when listening to her words. Kika-neon, from what you said, you are not going to take the high school entrance examination? There is no need. Minister, didn't you say that if you don't need to do something, you should just not do it? But the high school entrance examination is a stage in your life, and it is meaningful. But, Minister, didn't you say the greatest meaning of life is to do what you want to do? But, at least, don't let your parents. Jiang and Yeo now deeply felt what it meant to reap what you sow. Kika Nguyen had a good memory. She remembered all her fallacies and heresies back then, and now she used them to stuff her mouth. No fucking to say. Oh, it hurts. Jiang and Yu sighed, reached out and touched the drawer again, took out a large bag of boiled eggs, and began to eat them one by one. Kika Nguyen, what about you? I have seen you die and live again, and I have seen you grow up. You have a good family background, and don't have to worry about the future, but at least, pretend. No, Minister, didn't you say? Stop quoting me. I'm just eating and waiting to die, so you have to do the same. Jiang and Yu ate 3 boiled eggs in a row, and suddenly felt a little greasy. He reached into the drawer again, took out a chicken leg, tore open the bag, and started eating. I think it's great for you, Minister. I want to be like you. Kika Nguyen had already reopened the dungeon at this time. The cute girl with cat ears had been replaced by a white-haired green-hatted man and an old man with beautiful contact lenses and braids. Don't learn from me. I count one day as 1 year, and I don't want to be scolded by your parents after I go down. Jiang and Yu really didn't shy away from talking about her own death, but there was a change in her tone after all. When Kika Nguyen heard her words, she frowned, and the character in the phone stopped moving. Minister, I know my parents. They are not that kind of people. Jiang and Yu noticed that Kika Nguyen's tone was wrong. She turned her head and just met Kika Nguyen's gaze. At this time, Kika Nguyen's eyes were faintly shining with tears. Okay, I'm not dead yet. Don't make that expression. Jiang and Yu knew that she had said a little too much. Kika Nguyen had been with her for so long that her feelings for her were deeper than for her parents. To be honest, Kika Nguyen's parents were indeed not very competent. They were considered people who did big things, but they were too busy, rarely together, and their focus was too high sounding. You little girl, okay, let's not talk about this topic anymore. It's up to you whether you want to take the high school entrance examination or not. Come on, tell me about your bad luck, and make me happy. Bad luck? I lost money yesterday. Kika Nguyen lowered her head at this time and continued to fiddle with her phone, but the characters on the screen were all dead. All she could do was exit the dungeon and revive them one by one. Lost money? How much did you lose? Jiang and Yu heard about Kika Nguyen's bad luck, but did not gloat over it or show a happy smile. Instead, his expression became serious. 123 yuan and 50 cents. Chapter 347. 2 phone calls. $123.50. Jiang and Yu thought that Kika Nguyen had lost a lot of money, but she didn't expect that there was a small amount of money in both small and large amounts. It's not much. It's nothing. It's not much. This is all the money I brought yesterday. Kika Nguyen had given up on the dungeon at this time. She controlled the character to start cutting wood, and it looked like she was fighting with Dashu again. What? All the money? Jiang and Yu was really shocked at this time. She even threw the food in her hand on the table, wiped her hands casually, and hurriedly opened the news page. Minister, what's wrong? Let me see if there is anything wrong in Changlin City. Jiang and Yu's expression was very serious, and it didn't seem like a joke at all. Kika Nguyen looked at the minister's startled look, rolled his eyes, and decided to continue his woodcutting business. But at this time, Kika Nguyen's mobile phone suddenly rang. Kika Nguyen looked at the strange number in a different place, hesitated for a while, and then answered the call. Hello. Who is this? GLUO? Kika Nguyen never expected that the person on the other end of the phone was GLUO. She happily chatted with GLUO, asking about his current situation and his experience in Fanmeng. I'm sorry, Kika Nguyen, I have some troubles. I'll tell you from the beginning, when everything is done. Now, I have something to ask of you. It's okay, go ahead. Kika Nguyen knew that GLUO's situation was not optimistic when she heard his tone, so she stopped playing around and became serious. Afterwards, GLUO's voice on the phone was deliberately lowered. Ki Kan-yeon listened to his story, humming from time to time, and after listening to everything, she decisively agreed. No problem, I'll leave now and go straight to your place. We'll meet at the train station, and I'll pick up the two kids then. Is the train station inconvenient? Okay, I'll drive there, and you can choose a place to meet. Is there anything you need? I can prepare it for you. You don't need to prepare anything, right? Okay, I got it. I'll leave now. No need to rush. Then when will we meet? The day after tomorrow at noon. Okay, I'll leave tomorrow. Ki Kan-yeon talked to Gluo on the phone in bits and pieces, and finally the two confirmed their itinerary. Ki Kan-yeon wrote down Gluo's new mobile phone number and then hung up the phone. What's going on with Gluo? Jiang and Yu read a lot of news, but didn't find anything big, but even so, her face was not only not smiling, but even more gloomy. There are two little girls, please let me take care of them. How big is the trouble? Do you need me to help? Jiang and Yu did not ask whether she would help or not, but directly asked whether she was needed. Ki Kan-yeon shook her head, opened the map on her phone, and began to check the route she needed to take after leaving Changlin City. From what Gluo said, it's not a big deal, but it seems to be related to a person named Changkan Fixiang. Changkan Fixiang? Jiang and Yu did not seem to expect that she would be here. Hearing this name, she put down the mouse in her hand and patted her palm on the table. Ki Kan-yeon, after taking the two children over, I will take care of you. You go. This Changkan Fixiang must die. Okay. Ki Kan-yeon did not say anything nonsense and directly accepted Jiang and Yu's task. She trusted Jiang and Yu more than her own parents. As long as she needed it, even if it was to kill someone, Ki Kan-yeon would not hesitate. Jiang and Yu were so important in Ki Kan-yeon's heart. It's a troubled time. All kinds of monsters and demons are coming out. Minister, it's summer now. If you hadn't said it, I would have forgotten that it's summer now. Jiang and Yu glared at Ki Kan-yeon, who was quick-witted, but Ki Kan-yeon didn't care at all. Instead he showed a sly smile. Minister, where does Chan Kun-fei want to be? How long should I take a vacation? I don't know. You ask me, how can I know? Then how can I find him? Of course I'll find someone who knows. Jiang and Yu reached into his snack pile, grabbed it twice, took out the cell phone buried in the ground, and made a call. Hello? Ki-chudi? What are you doing? I have something to do. Come over here. What? A difficult task? No problem. I'll find someone to help you solve it. Just come over. By the way, send me the information of the task now. I just happen to have someone here. Okay, that's it. Jiang and Yu spoke and made decisions very quickly. The whole call took less than 3 minutes, and everything was settled. Minister, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? It's okay. Ki-chudi is blind. She refused your offer to be her disciple. Your life is doomed. I'm not happy. It's a long time ago. When did I care? Jiang and Yu seemed to be poked in the sore spot and immediately yelled loudly. Ki Kan-yeon was indeed not afraid and still had a playful look. What's wrong? Minister, you have always been confident of victory. Why are you so nervous today? I'm not nervous. I have a headache. Jiang and Yu said, and really rubbed his head, as if he was irritated by Ki Kan-yeon, this unfilial disciple. It's a troublesome summer. The task that Ki-chudi took over is also a troublesome thing. This world is getting more and more difficult. Minister, what is Ki-chudi's task? I'll do it while I'm at it. Ki Kan-yeon is a brave girl who is not afraid of difficulties. When she heard that Ki-chudi's task was very difficult, she immediately became excited, as if she was going to show off her skills. Bullshit. Just be obedient and follow Ki-chudi to kill Changkan Fixiang. As for the mission, leave it to Gluo and the others. Gluo? Gluo is not in Changlin City now, and also, Ki Kan-yeon had communicated with Gluo before, and she knew about his troubles. Gluo is in a state of panic now, and he certainly can't take care of anything else. It's okay, don't worry, he is not alone. There are so many troubles now, and you, the secretary, have been dispatched, so he, the deputy minister, must also make some contributions. And, that Su King-han, is also a time bomb. That Su King-han? What's wrong with her? Kika Nyuan's eyes were crackling, as if they were about to glow, but Jiang and Liu didn't give her a good look, and directly signaled her with his eyes to be honest. Just do your job well, don't be curious about this and that, or you will have a headache in the future. GLUO and the others are in an awkward situation now, and the mission of the 19th Bureau of the National Security Bureau is actually a perfect opportunity. That's right, working for the government is just an opportunity to take advantage of the time difference, building a plank road in the open, while secretly attacking Chen Kanki Kanian. Why is your mind full of thoughts of breaking the law and discipline? Jiang and Liu was angered by Kika Niuan's words. She took a deep breath and barely resisted the urge to take action. Let me ask you, when did you lose the money yesterday? Yesterday, at noon. What time at noon? I don't remember. Anyway, it was after 11:30 and before 2 o'clock. Chapter 348. Token. Jiang and Yu looked at Kika Nyuan's nonchalant expression and was so angry that veins popped out on her forehead, but she finally said what she was angry about. Kika Nyuan, she has really grown up. She was such a small and stupid child back then, but now she has become lazy, and she has inherited her legacy. Over the years, her body has been declining, and her days are numbered, but even now, she must keep the secrets of the past until she dies, and then she can tell her everything. Kika Nyuan, in fact, is a stupid child, so stupid that she almost died, but she did not die, but survived well and became hope. Because Kika Nyuan is a lucky child, she is surrounded by the blessings of that person, and she is lucky, as if she is protected. This kind of luck can actually be seen as a meter. Once she, who is protected, suffers bad luck, it means that an unspeakable disaster has already formed. Kika Nyuan, the weather is so good today, let's go out for a picnic. Jiang and Yu looked at Kika Nyuan's lazy expression and couldn't help but smiled and shook his head. Kika Nyuan, this silly child, is really quite cute. If possible, I really want to walk a little further with her. Okay, I'm going to see GLUO tomorrow, and today is a good time to buy him some gifts. Kika Nyuan showed an expression of I'm so smart. Jiang and Liu knew without asking that Kika Nyuan thought that she was caring about GLUO, and he would definitely like her more. Well, this is the half-baked art of power that Jiang and Liu taught her. You go drive, I'll change clothes. Okay, see you at the school gate. Kika Nyuan is a girl who can satisfy herself very well. She shook her body, made a move like an airplane taking off, and ran out of the door in a flash. What a silly child. Jiang and Yu looked at Kika Nyuan's leaving figure with a hazy smile on her face. She suddenly leaned over and coughed a few times uncontrollably, and a mouthful of bright red blood spit out from her throat. There's one more time, one last time, and we can fight again. Thinking of this, Jiang and Yu not only did not feel uneasy or painful, but smiled expectantly. She was never one who feared death. She liked the feeling of burning herself in battle, and would not stop until she died. Never stop until death. Jiang and Yu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth with a tissue, then got up from the chair, and went to the bathroom to rinse her mouth. It was rare that Jiang and Yu did not lazily pull a set of clothes to change. She opened the wardrobe, carefully selected, and took out a black dress. When it suddenly rained heavily in your sky, it was me blowing up the dark clouds for you. When your hair was slightly messy and a gust of wind blew, it was me missing you from afar. Jiang and Yu hummed a ballad from a long time ago, slowly changed her dress, and then took out an earring from the secret compartment and hung it on her ear. The style of the earring was quite novel. The black metal wrapped a sphere that looked like a glass marble. But if you look closely, you will find that it is completely a miniature version of the Earth, and it is exquisite and elegant, almost reaching the height of a work of art. GLUO, I have fulfilled the promise we made to you. Jiang and Yu looked in the mirror and tried to show the smile she used to have. Unfortunately, after trying several times, it was just stiff and empty. After he was gone, she would never have that kind of smile again. We were all little kids back then. Why would we want to remember something so deeply? We were just upset because we couldn't get it. Jiang and Yu finally gave up trying to smile. She turned and left the bedroom, leaving her little nest in a very casual manner. At the school gate, Kika Nyuan was sitting in the car, waiting for something, and was already quite bored. After seeing Jiang and Yu dressed up, the girl's eyes immediately lit up, and she showed a very excited smile. Minister, is there any big event today? No, I just want to dress up. Jiang and Yu sat in the back seat and poured a basin of cold water on Qi Kan Yuan. Qi Kan Yuan pouted his lips, started the car, and drove away along the street. Minister, shall we go to my house, take out the barbecue food, and go camping? Will you light a fire? I don't care if you do all the work. I'm seriously injured now and can't do these heavy work. Jiang and Yu was wearing a black dress, and her appearance was extremely beautiful, but unlike her appearance, her inner laziness was a disaster to her temperament. She lazily nestled in the chair, and the whole person looked like she didn't want to do anything. Let me do it all. Qi Kan Yuan obviously liked the excitement, but looked like she disliked trouble. She hesitated for a moment, thinking about whether to call Tang Ruoxi and bring her along. Okay, Qi Kan Yuan, don't bother too much. Let's find a place to eat after the tour. Okay. Qi Kan Yuan felt that Jiang and Yu seemed to be worried, so he gave up the idea of calling others. Jiang and Yu leaned her head on the seat, closed her eyes, and took a nap for a while before talking again. Qi Kan Yuan, did you give that glass bead to Gluo? Glass bead? Oh, it's the token of our World Rescue Association, right? I gave it to you a long time ago. Qi Kan Yuan suspected that Jiang and Yu had Alzheimer's disease. How long ago did it happen? She gave it to Gluo and told her about it when she came back. Did Gluo say anything at that time? What? Nothing. He just said, thank you, I will keep these words. Qi Kan Yuan actually couldn't remember what Gluo said, but she felt that it was almost the same. With Gluo's personality, he would have said that at that time. Is that so? Qi Kan Yuan was not surprised by Gluo's words, but at the same time, she was not happy at all. Really? I can't go back. What's the matter, Minister? Does this token have any power? Qi Kan Yuan stared at the single earring on Jiang and Yu's ear in the rearview mirror, but she didn't see anything. She also had a glass ball like this, but she made it into an anklet and usually hung it on her right foot. Just keep it with you. One day, you'll understand. Jiang and Yu's answer was not harsh, but Qi Kan Yuan heard the rejection in it, so she stopped asking. Anyway, the minister would not lie to her, so it's fine to keep it with her. Minister, let's go eat roasted whole lamb today. Tang Ruoxi recommended a restaurant to me a few days ago, saying that the taste is very good. Okay, you decide. Jiang and Yu sighed slightly, shrank back into the chair, and pretended to hibernate. The world is difficult. She can still fight one last battle, but what about after that? With such an optimistic personality, can Qi Kan Yuan really support the important task that Gluo once entrusted to her? The future is coming. Chapter 349, Entering the City. After winter, spring seems particularly short. As summer approaches, the sun has become a bit scorching. Gluo, do you want to go out for a walk tonight? Su Qinghan sat on a chair on the balcony of the hotel, looking at the grass and birds outside, and seemed to be eager to try. Okay. But you have to wait a little longer. Gluo was sitting cross-legged on the bed at this time, holding a newly bought notebook, sorting out the information about Chang and Fixiang. Well, no hurry. Su Qinghan took a sip of the juice next to him, then put his head on the recliner, and enjoyed the slightly hot sunshine. Gluo raised his head, and glanced at Su Qinghan, who was curled up like a kitten, and couldn't help showing a sly smile. Because he was afraid that Su Qinghan would find out, Gluo didn't dare to look for long and immediately moved his eyes away. It must be said that, although this city is close to the border between Fanmeng, the appearance of the city is very different from that of Fanmeng. Peaceful, clean, and stable. After Gluo returned to the familiar atmosphere, he completely fell in love with the order in China. Anyway, Gluo has decided that, if there is nothing serious, he will never go abroad. Getting lost on the grassland and camping in the wilderness for 2 days and 2 nights is too miserable. After Gluo and Su Qinghan found the road, they didn't dare to wave to stop the car, but quietly got into the cargo hold of a large truck and ran out near the highway service area. After that, Gluo bought 2 sets of clothes for the Yun sisters and changed into a set of clean clothes for himself, so that he could finally meet people. After entering the city, Su Qinghan had already booked a room in advance. Luo glanced at the price casually, which scared him so much that his hair stood up. My goodness, the price of the house on that day was enough to buy a small toilet in Changlin City. Of course, Luo didn't mention changing rooms. Luo didn't know how much money Su Qinghan had, but Luo still had a little understanding of her methods of making money. After the two of them confirmed their relationship, Su Qinghan also chatted casually. In fact, she was not that far away back then, just 2 or 3 years ago. The first pot of gold was the casino. The underground casino relied on cheating to win money. When they won enough, they would leave. They would take turns to come to each house. If they were dissatisfied, they would beat them, and then ask for spiritual compensation after the beating. When talking about the past, Su Qinghan was not shy, but rather had a sense of complacency. Luo was also happy to hear it, and even a little yearning. After all, Su Qinghan's experience was too rich. In order to escape, she first went to the high seas, then went abroad, and after traveling through several countries, she ran back to China. Abroad, she did more unscrupulously. She didn't have a good reputation, but she did make money. She was nicknamed Frost Disaster. Just by listening to this name, you can know how cruel she was back then. In fact, Luo could see that Su Qinghan was at a loss back then. In order to escape from Tang Xujian's capture, she didn't know how many times she died. In the pain of repeated deaths, she became a little indifferent and crazy. And this is also Luo's impression of Su Qinghan when he first met her. It is somewhat unimaginable that such a girl would turn her head to look at him from time to time at this moment, with tenderness in her eyes. It's great. Luo now feels that he is really too happy, a little illusory and hazy, and at the same time, a little scared. Luo also felt that after Su Qinghan woke up this time, she did not mention Mu Yingluo. Luo certainly did not believe that Su Qinghan had forgotten Mu Yingluo. Su Qinghan's silence meant that she had a big move, so big that Luo could not know it for the time being. Luo certainly did not try to insinuate it, but Su Qinghan always tried to cover it up in various ways. Luo could not resist her, and could only give up asking. Of course, Luo did not do nothing. The reason why he bought a laptop was to organize the information. Luo had Fei Jia's phone number, and the two of them got in touch with each other without much effort. Fei Jia was very considerate. He directly transferred $2 million to Luo. At the same time, he also gave Luo a bunch of information about Chang'an Fixiang. These materials were given to Luo by Sei Yi. After all, she was Chang'an Fixiang's maid, and the things she had accumulated over the years were extraordinary. Luo originally just wanted to understand Chang'an Fixiang and find a breakthrough, but what Luo didn't expect was that he actually found clues about Tang Xujian from the information. The two of them had been in cahoots for a long time. Through the few words and the information, Luo even found that Tang Xujian had contact with Chang'an Fixiang as early as when he was in the island country. Moreover, Chang'an Fixiang's most famous research topic at the time was funded by Tang Xujian. These two people are a bit weird. Luo was actually quite curious at first. Tang Xujian would actually leave Mu Yingluo with Chang'an Fixiang. Did he trust him so much? But as the information deepened, Luo gradually realized that it was very likely that Chang'an Fixiang was Tang Xujian's subordinate, and a die-hard one. Because the information mentioned that Chang'an Fixiang praised Tang Xujian highly, and even when he called, he would stand to answer. This kind of superior subordinate relationship between the two of them showed that Chang'an Fixiang would complete Tang Xujian's tasks seriously, and Mu Yingluo's whereabouts would be more hidden. At least, there was no trace in Changlin City. Shanhai City. Shanhai City. Luo suddenly remembered that Tang Xujian had said in the tender for transportation that it would be transported from Changlin City to Shanhai City. So, is this route true or false? Did Tang Xujian want to build a plank road in the open to secretly cross Qinkang, or was he just hiding it from the sky, and it was all fake? Normally, Tang Xujian's transportation plan should be completely confidential. Although Su Qinghan can go back in time after death, If she doesn't know about this transportation, how can she intervene? Moreover, what puzzled Gluo the most was why Tang Ruoxi sent Mu Yingluo to Shanhai City. King Han, do you know why Mu Yingluo was arranged abroad? Gluo was halfway through sorting out the information when he was stuck on this question. He put down his computer and turned to ask Su Qinghan. After all, Su Qinghan was a participant in this, and she might be able to see more things. I don't know. I have been looking for Mu Yingluo. Did Tang Zijian hide her in the border of Fanmeng just to hide her? It shouldn't be. The country is so big, he doesn't need to hide her abroad. Well, could it be convenient? For example, if the local government of Fanmeng collapses, it can be lawless, and it is also necessary to be on guard against buying any materials into the country. In that case, why did they transport Mu Yingluo to Shanhai City? Gluo frowned more and more as he thought about it. Although Su Qinghan's words made sense, even so, Tang Zijian's subsequent arrangements for Mu Yingluo were also weird and chilling. Maybe Li Ziaowen's body is in Shanhai City. Chapter 350, Li Ziaowen's cause and effect. Li Ziaowen. Gluo had heard this name several times. As far as he knew, she was a very talented scientist and the adoptive mother of Su Qinghan and 32 other children. Gluo actually wanted to ask Su Qinghan about Li Ziaowen, but when it came to his mouth, Gluo's words changed. King Han, how did you know that Mu Yingluo would be secretly transported to Shanhai City? Someone told me. Who? Jiang and Yu. Su Qinghan had no intention of hiding it. When she woke up this time, her attitude towards Gluo really changed dramatically. If she had been hiding things from Gluo with the idea of protecting him before, now, she just wanted Gluo to know as many things as possible, so that he could better protect himself in the future. Jiang and Yu? Are you familiar with her? Gluo's mind was really a little confused. Gluo was a little confused about Jiang and Yu's identity, but what was certain was that she was very powerful. So, how could she have contact with Su Qinghan? Jiang and Yu and I are just acquaintances. When I was running around, I would deal with wild spirits and the like. I met her once. She's a pretty good person, so we could chat for a while. Su Qinghan didn't really know Jiang and Yu, but she knew that Jiang and Yu was very strong, so she had always tried to avoid her as much as possible. I didn't really have much contact with her, but she helped me 2 or 3 times, which was quite crucial. Is that so? Gluo looked at Su Qinghan's somewhat tangled expression and roughly understood the relationship between the two. To put it bluntly, Su Qinghan was used to being alone and didn't want to have any contact with others, but Jiang and Yu's attitude towards her was inexplicably good, and he helped her a lot proactively and without asking for anything in return. That's it. Su Qinghan obviously didn't want to say this, but now that she had said it, she changed her mind. Su Qinghan got up from the recliner and walked into the room. After confirming that the doors and windows were closed again and again, she sat on the bed. Gluo, I once asked Jiang and Yu why she helped me, and she answered, because of Li Ziaowen. Li Ziaowen again. Gluo now felt that the world was really pitifully small. What was going on? How come everyone was from all over the world and had never had any connection, but when they came into contact, they all had inexplicable connections? Was it a ridiculous coincidence? Or the inevitability of fate? King Han, what kind of person is Li Ziaowen? Gluo felt that he could no longer avoid this question. Things were so complicated that they were tangled. If he wanted to unravel these tangled mysteries, he had to start from the root. Li Ziaowen is my adoptive mother. She is a very strict person, but she is not a bad person. At least when I knew her, she was still a good person. Facing Gluo's question, Su Qinghan finally did not continue to hide it. Those unknown things from more than 10 years ago began to unfold like a scroll. According to Jiang and Yu, she knew Li Ziaowen a long time ago, probably 11 or 12 years ago. Anyway, she only remembered roughly. In her words, this is not an important thing, and Li Ziaowen is not an important person. At that time, Li Ziaowen was already a very famous biological genius. She became famous at a young age, and was a little proud, even arrogant. People who specialize in biological research, almost like medical researchers, will gradually lose and become numb to things like life. Later, Lee Zio-won heard about a very strange disease. The patient would fall asleep from time to time, and the vital signs were so weak that they were almost non-existent, but after a while, they would wake up again, just like resurrection. It's just that every time the disease occurs, the patient will be weaker. And there is only one patient with this disease, named Eun. What Soo Kyung-hun said was all the information she got from Jang Eun. Although she was appending to someone else's words, she spoke very slowly, as if she was considering every word. Eun. Jialuo's heart tightened when he heard the name Eun. He had also heard that he had a childhood sweetheart named Eun. She suffered from an incurable terminal illness and had to travel to Western Europe to try treatment. Soo Kyung-han, so at that time, Lee Zio-won also went to see Eun. Of course, the young and energetic Lee Zio-won went to see the girl named Eun. She saw the onset of her illness with her own eyes and tried to use the knowledge she had learned to analyze the cause, but she failed. Soo Kyung-hun had seen Lee Zio-won with her own eyes, so she could understand how desperate Lee Zio-won was when facing this illness. Eun's illness cannot be explained by known biological knowledge. Lee Zio-won has made various efforts, but in the end, nothing was achieved. However, this helpless predicament did not make Eun lose confidence. After countless explorations and studies, she found that the cause of Eun's illness may come from something that science cannot explain, the soul. Back then, Lee Zio-won guessed that Eun's illness did not come from her body, but from her soul. Because humans cannot explore or contact the soul, they are helpless against this disease and can only watch Eun become weaker and weaker day by day and eventually die. In that era, Lee Zio-won was very talented. She felt that she represented the authority of biology, so she was very sure that Eun was beyond saving. Since there was no hope, why not change her mind and turn from rescue to research? If she could get a clue from Eun, and thus prove the existence of the soul, then how great and legendary she would be. She could forever engrave her name in human history and the progress of science. This opportunity, this possibility, made Lee Zio-won unable to suppress her desire. Once she had these thoughts, it was like a nightmare that she could never get rid of. And what really pushed her forward was her inherent indifference and her disregard for the concept of same race. Soo Kyung-hun was not an eyewitness of that year, but Jang Eun was. According to Jang Eun, she and Eun were in the same elementary school, just not in the same grade. Jang Eun was only 11 or 12 years old at that time. She told Soo Kyung-hun without hesitation that she had seen Lee Zio-won at the school gate many times. She took Eun to her clinic for treatment like a kind and amiable older sister. Thinking about it later, the more gentle and kind Lee Zio-won's smile was at that time, the more disgusting it was. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.